So I say most people believe there is something dramatically wrong in this country. They're not sure what it is.
Got your labor next your soul, interest slave in endless hole. It's so deep you'll never leave, a text on key with no reprieve. Interest banking, future sold, paper money, fuck the gold. Print more money, there's no end, new interest rates thanks to the Fed. Inflation's up, we can't afford to import, source an endless hoard. Funding all this endless war, these the whores I must ignore. Feeling good, yeah that's my price. The system lets me have my vice. Bread and circus feels nice, feeling bad, take this advice. Just take this pill, watch TV, smoke weed and chill. Football parties, man the grill. Watch some porn, drain your vril. Endless pleasure, wait until the lights go out, the lights are out. Holy fuck, the lights went out. The lights go out, the lights are out. Holy fuck, the lights went out. Never thought that this would happen. Should've prepped instead of fapping. Tires screeching, people scream. Living nightmare, not a dream. There goes all my dopamine, wiping off my jerk-off cream. I'm flabby, weak and unprepared to own a gun. I'm really scared. Water filters, batteries, cans of food and MREs. I really should've bought that shit before the social fabric ripped. Atomize, I'm all alone, no internet, can't scroll my phone. The lights go out, the lights are out. The lights go out. Came on, I can't believe. Breathe a sigh of great relief. Boy, I love modernity. Endless goon sesh, never leave. If you're sad, just take this pill. Watch TV, smoke weed and chill. Football parties, man the grill. Watch some porn, join your grill. Endless pleasure, wait until the lights go out. The lights are out. The lights go out. The lights go out. The lights go out. The lights go out. The lights are out. Holy fuck, the lights went out. The lights go out. The lights are out. Holy fuck, the lights went out. The lights go out.
And we are back once again for another episode of Library of Mass Destruction. I am your host, Capitalisimo, and with me, as always, is Mr. Christopher Sandbatch. How are you doing today?
I have a 2-day hangover, which is like right now. Have you ever seen that picture of Enrique Iglesias? I think it's Enrique Iglesias, where he's like slumped over in like his like tour bus or something like that.
I'm not sure if I would be able to pick him out of a lineup at all.
Oh, yeah. There's this story. He's like got aviators on, wearing a wife beater, and he's like sitting in his yacht. And like in front of him, there's just like there's a bottle of like Chateau Rothschild and like that. So like it's just that's how I feel right now.
He's just completely cashed out.
Yeah, I went to a crawfish boil on Saturday, and then Sunday. I mean, I like probably drank 20 beers, and like just can't do that at some point. You can't do that at some point, you know.
On,
and
on
then
Sunday, I drank 2 32-ounce tall boys of Miller High Life, the champagne of beers. Not sponsored, but yeah, it was. I don't know. I didn't have a hangover. That's maybe you're getting weak in your old age.
I think that's what it is.
Need to put you out to pasture. We're
Well,
gonna send old Sandy to a farm where he can run in the fields.
Then Sunday, I decided to like what I really needed to do was go get on a fucking sailboat, and then I just got dehydrated again. So like, what? Here we go. You know.
That's right. Well, you gotta, wait, sailboat? Aren't you? Where are you?
New Orleans.
Oh, you're back. You couldn't take the boy out. He had to get drawn back into it.
Oh my God. It's like, I'm only going to be here for 3 months. Well, I mean, they're going to, I'm going to be, I have 3 months on this lease. And then I'm either going somewhere else, like God knows where it's going to be this. I'm like seriously thinking about Europe, which is like
terrible choice, awful choice.
So,
You get arrested immediately.
I would know. That's in the UK. Europe is fine with me.
Okay, well, okay, maybe. I feel like in the UK you can get arrested for being a neo-Confederate. It's
dude, like I've been to the UK since I got doxxed.
Yeah,
and they didn't do anything, but I'm pretty sure they can theoretically throw the book at me. I think it's true.
Beautiful. I think you would probably be denied entry to Germany.
Yeah, I've never been to Germany, and I've never really desired to go. But well, once you get in the Schengen area, you're good in all the Schengen countries. So yeah, you just have to get into one of. This is why their fucking shit's all fucked up, because you get into one of them.
I'm for Bavarian independence.
Right.
I'm for Bavexit or whatever you would make those.
Whatever the fuck it is.
Chat's very busy because Gabe also drank this weekend. Probably for the first time. He had some very stout milk. Yeah,
he drank something like that's been in the refrigerator for too long.
That's right. If Gabe was white, I would say that he drank skim milk and couldn't recover because he couldn't find any whole raw milk to drink in the days following. But I know that's not true.
The downside is I now have no context for what's been going on in the wider world. And
because so, I'm unconscious.
I've been I was Saturday, I was like sun-stricken from morning till night. Then Sunday, I woke up. It was so bad, I rolled a blunt and smoked that, and then went on a fucking sailboat and got worse.
It was so bad you bought some Black and Milds.
Yeah. Oh well, yeah. Black and Milds. But anyway, apparently shit's happening in Los Angeles, and
yeah, I mean, I see no downside to this. For me, this is an absolute win.
I do like that because there's a turbo cell of Sandbatch fans in Los Angeles County, which I think is funny, but there are. Actually, in my metrics, California punches so far above its weight. Like California actually loves Sandbatch, and I love California for it. But I love the fact that
referring to yourself in the third person is a little weird.
Yeah, no, we're good. We're good getting to new heights of bullshit now. But the thing that cracks me up about the Los Angeles thing is that everybody I know in Los Angeles is just like going about their day. It's like, as long as the supply of boba tea and like, whatever the fuck else it is people do in Los Angeles doesn't let up, they're going to be the last people that care. It's like people in like fucking Houston being like, yeah, get them protesters.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful to be insulated from the lessers, from the hoi polloi, you might say, from the plebs. And soon, after we go through second Reconstruction, when Stephen Miller personally captures the head of Gavin Newsom, then all of California will be nice.
Somebody new is we have a new member of the chat. That's Trap Game John Keeperman.
That is Ham.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's gotta be.
Trap Game John Keeperman for $20. Thank you, of course, for your generosity. If I was the type of dude who gooned to graphs, I wouldn't be able to type this because I'd be furiously fapping to this book. That's true. Gary Allen has some powerful graph foo. Unfortunately, it's complete nonsense. It's graphs for the sake of graphs. They're not graphs that are that assist in any way.
Yeah, I'm looking over here at the one on the right without like contextualizing it all, and I'm wondering like what the fuck is this squiggly line? It's this more Egyptian glyph than graph.
That's right. Yeah, this is part of the Stargate code for Earth. Like it gets you to the Hyperborean gate that's in the center of Agartha. That's right. Drinking from a God. The rest of chat is about having a massive hangover. So you've really set us on a path today, Sandbatch. I appreciate that.
It's white boy summer is what it is. It's white boy summer.
MG with a truke. The UK is simply punishing everyone around them out of spite for losing World War II. So true, King. They realize in their soul that they lost the empire.
They're starting to realize that
they fought a war to lose their own empire. The fools.
Incredible. Like, what would you do if your tennis buddy started beating himself with his racket? You know,
I would essentially what's happening in LA could be. I'm not crossing any fingers here. But I might be torsioning some testicles. But what's happening in LA could be the beginning of us fighting a civil war to get out of our empire.
Shit, is it that big? I really haven't paid attention at all.
Well, depending on if anything goes live fire, but Marines and National Guard have been deployed. There are multiple state government officials across the nation who are claiming that they are illegal immigrants, which I predict will not go well for them.
It's hard to point.
Yes.
What makes you think that was a good idea?
Echo chamber. I think that perhaps the competency crisis has reached the halls of power in ways that were heretofore not predicted.
Oh, this might just be like a really weird I am Spartacus thing.
Yeah, except I am gonna get deported is how that works. So either they're lying, right? So either they're lying and they are not illegals, which is like a weird flex, right? I feel like that won't go over well for the people who are into the I am an illegal thing,
right?
But or they are, and they just quit their job in the funniest way. So you can't hold. It turns out you can't hold public office if you're an illegal. So
I did see that JD Vance was like trolling the menswear guy that has us all blocked.
Oh yeah. There's dye workwear, something like that.
Little Filipino dude.
Or dye menswear. Yeah. I mean, one day we'll be able to deport Ian Miles Chong to South Sudan, even though he's not in the United States, and as far as I know, has never been in the United States.
Wherever you're
go to find him in Malaysia and send him to Sudan.
Yeah, so you're going to South Sudan from wherever you are right now. Just sit tight. We'll be there in a minute.
Oh yeah, here it is. There we go. Derek Guy is the dude who is gonna get deported. And what is it? There was LA Repeater, which was a leftist, anti-cop thing where they were reporting on positions of ICE agents and where raids were happening, and also doxing ICE agents. They have received a warrant for their arrest.
Dude, I pointed this out a couple of months ago. I was like, the crazy thing about the left is that, like, without fail, they're actually incredible at this. When they stop getting what they want, they get really fucking violent. Like, it's remarkable how consistent it is.
It's incredibly consistent.
We're just going to revert directly to state violence,
Well, if you let's see, what is it? LA Mayor Karen Bass recently was
sure
on
one of-
CNN earlier this very morning, and said that the riots are a result of ICE raids. Just
I'm sure she's a shining example of civic virtue.
yes, of course. You tried to enforce the law, and all of these people don't want the law enforced. Well, okay. Yes. In any case, yeah. So you're still hungover though.
Yeah.
I think you should probably start drinking now.
Start drinking? I have an energy drink.
Oh, okay. It's a little late in the day.
It is.
You're not going to sleep. You're not going to sleep. It's not going to help you.
It's going to be even worse.
It's not going to help you. Have a Diet Coke. Become obese.
I don't. I absolutely do not keep. I drink so few sodas that I don't keep. In none of that shit is ever in my house.
Yeah, that's true. I'm drinking as usual a tall mug of ice water with lemon.
I got that one of them ghost drinks, motherfucker, doing sour watermelon.
I got one of them white monsters.
Yeah,
that's what they call my cock.
God, those monsters are so bad. I don't know how people drink them.
They're vile.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, the white monster just tastes like Fanta, but Fresca. It's
that's right.
All right. Well, anyway, we're gonna get started with none dare call it conspiracy. We've done our obligatory 16 minutes of bullshit.
We're gonna get ready, get y'all stuff ready to learn about the Democrats.
The Democrats and Republic cunts.
Yeah.
What was it that they said earlier in the book? Something incredibly boomerish that was super lame. Oh no. It was John West, Jolyon West's son, who said bureaucratic.
That's
bureaucratic.
So
yeah, terrible. All right. All right. You will recall that Colonel House, the right-hand man of Woodrow Wilson, believed we should have two political parties, but only a single ideology, one world socialism. This is exactly what we have in this country today. See chart 8. We'll get to it in a second. I'm going to finish the paragraph.
Yeah.
Although there are philosophical differences between the grassroots Democrats and the grassroots Republican, yet as you move up the party ladders, these differences become less and less distinguishable until finally the ladders disappear behind the establishment's managed news curtain and come together at the apex under the control of the Council on Foreign Relations. In 1968, when George Wallace maintained that there wasn't a dime's worth of difference between the two parties, he may not have known how right he was or why. Alrighty. Democrats, left side, Republicans, right side, CFR, squiggly line, whatever that means. Managed news curtain. I think the managed news curtain is a squiggly line, so it obscures the fact that as they converge, the secret behind the curtain is CFR.
I like how you have to actually whip out the decoder to figure, because there's also
I also bought the decoder ring that came with the book. Now it says drink more. Now
what's sort of interesting about this is that historically, again, this is kind of true. Actually, let me pull up my article on this real quick. I'll find it very quickly. I'll find it while I'm talking. Is that this is one of these things where, and I used to work with some of I always point out, I used to work with some of the type of people who wrote this book, and they would always do this thing where they say the Republicans are the party of no ideas and the Democrats are the party of bad ideas. That's what they would always say.
Yeah.
And okay. Oh yeah. Maybe this is the one.
Oh, at this point, Kissinger was still considered a Republican.
Right. Where's the is this the AI article? Fucking hell.
Do we have to do? Are we going to have to do the Hunter Thompson voice because you know who's on this list?
The Hubert Humphrey.
And you killed Jesus.
It's one of the most random. It's one of the. one of the most random Hunter S. Thompson lines. Like whenever you knew it, I'm like, it must just stick out for so many people. There's one of these like throwaway lines towards the end of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas where Hunter S. Thompson says, it says something. He says, you voted for Hubert Humphrey and you killed Jesus, which I don't even know what it means. Hubert Humphrey was not really a bad guy. He was just kind of boring.
That's because you're a hippie. You think that because you're a hippie.
Yeah, I am a hippie. That is. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Party systems. So I broke everything down. I actually put on my history. By the way, everybody, I am currently ranked the number 94 and rising history voice on Substack, despite publishing almost no history whatsoever this year, which is like kind of cool, I guess. But anyway, I have, this is whenever I was doing the extrapolations. First party system, second party system. I think 6. Yeah. 6-party system. This is the one that I characterized as FDR's.
You can share if you have a thing, you can share the screen.
I've been afraid to mess with that, but
it just shares the tab.
Oh, and to present, so you all can't see my let my image file share screen.
Yeah.
Where is it? It's going to be.
You can also directly share an image file.
Very cool. Did it work?
Yes, it did.
Oh man, it's turbo cool. Yeah.
Right.
See this is an article that's over on my blog. I characterize all the different party systems, and the one that we're dealing with here. So this book was published in 1970. This is the end of this.
72, but this is the end of the 6th party system.
Right. This is the very end of the 6-party system. And you see what I call it there? It's called the New Deal coalition. So the key features: dominance of the Democratic Party through New Deal policies, federal intervention in civil rights, economic recovery and infrastructure, and Republican Southern strategy and the rise of ideological polarization. Okay, so this idea that the two parties were more similar, were like that there's almost no difference between them. This is objectively true in the 1970s. This is political environment that's characterized.
What tremendous humility for you to say that about something you wrote.
No, that's not just me. The stuff that I did that was down like this 8-party system. That's all me. Like nobody's ever.
No, everything else you're sort of extracting from the work.
Yeah, everything else is a pretty well-known framework.
Fair enough.
But everybody has a slightly different like mixture brew of it. This one, I'm actually 6-party. This is actually where I start to dive.
This is your local IPA.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But okay, so this thing that happens, this Watergate incident that happens, that kicks off the rise of the conservative movement and sends the Democrats skittering way off to the left. I don't know that this is true anymore. Okay, so this idea that there's no real difference between the parties was true in the 1970s, was probably true almost at least all the way through 2001. But like this 8-party system, I think I actually have it since it is growing wealth inequality and populism on both ends of the spectrum, technological and social media driven polarization. The parties are not. This is one of the things that's.
Do you actually wait? What? When do you think the parties actually diverged?
Really, they started in 1974, but it's going to stay they stay pretty close together in lockstep. These 2-party systems right here, the 7th and 8th, they're like sort of characterized by mostly mutual agreement between the parties on like broad terms like American internationalism, free trade, essentialism, so on and so forth. But they do sharply divide over issues like abortion, state-funded medical care. See, like that's an interesting. Like, there's a party that's for state-funded medical care, sort of privately backed state-funded medical care in this like really weird privatized system. This is something like both Richard Nixon and Lyndon Johnson were probably more familiar, more sympathetic to the idea of socialized healthcare than really either party is now. But both of the parties sharply, that's a real actual difference between them. So like the parties were the same really a lot in the 7th and 8th, but except for a few issues that it was like sort of mutually agreed on that everybody was going to like fight over, and it's always abortion, some culture war issue, something like that. Now we're down here in like really the end of the 8th party system, and then like actually if I go down here, actually like predict is like the AI driven politics era probability. This is when did I publish this? This was back in December, I think.
Yeah.
Social media platform.
I think there's a non-zero chance that really we're just in an interregnum. Like that Trump represents an interregnum. First Trump did not, but second Trump.
Look, regional dominance and fragmentation. Look, 30%. Got it. We got it this weekend. Very cool. Doing great. The technocratic authoritarian shift. Sorry, Peter Thiel. The lefties. Even worse. But anyway, yeah.
Oh no.
So that's what's going on. He's willing to talk about how there's no difference at all between the parties.
Mandatory possibility, 5% mandatory sex transition.
Yes. But there are real differences between the parties, and there are more so now than there were in the Nixon administration. So that's an interesting thing that's sort of changed. And I'm still curious what the squiggly is.
Well, that's the managed news curtain. That's the curtain. It's got folds. It's got waves in it, like a piece of fabric.
Okay, I thought the A frame was the.
No, the A frame is a sight line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Both the control emanates from the CFR and passes through the curtain.
I wonder what Gary was thinking.
Empowers the Democrats and the Republicans.
What was Gary thinking whenever he
people love graphs? You got to add some graphs.
I showed you that ridiculous.
Yes, you did.
That ridiculous chart, didn't I? Yes,
you did. Yes. All right. The following are so-called Democrats who have been or now are CFR agents: Dean Acheson, Alger Hiss, Adlai Stevenson, John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Edward Kennedy, Avril Harriman, George Ball, Henry Fowler, Dean Rusk, Adam Yarmolinsky, Hubert Humphrey, and You Killed Jesus, and John Lindsay.
I want to go back and look at this Yarmolinsky character a bit closer.
It is interesting to note that rewards of cushy jobs were given by the international bankers to many men high in the LBJ administration for their services. Undersecretary of State George Ball went with Lehman Brothers, R.I.P. Lehman Brothers. Yeah. Secretary of Treasury Henry Fowler was taken in by Goldman Sachs and Company. Budget Director Peter Lewis, Undersecretary of the Treasury Frederick Deming, and former Secretary of Commerce C.R. Smith all avoided breadlines by being picked up by Lazard Frere, the Rothschilds. Fowler and Deming were largely responsible for policies which led to European nations claiming half of our gold and having potential claims on the rest, as well as denuding the U.S. Treasury of all the silver reserves that had built up over a century of time. Did the international bankers take pity on these men for their incompetence, or were they rewarded for a job well done? Taking the gold and silver reserves has really worked out well for Europe.
Yeah, what
do you mean?
Yeah, for context, Germany recently, because there's like Germany, we somehow strong-armed. He's actually backwards here. We somehow strong-armed the European Union into keeping like almost all of their gold supply in the United States. I have no idea. I have no idea how or why we were able to get them to agree to that arrangement. But Germany, a couple of years ago, tried to get some of theirs back, and we just said no.
Nah.
What?
Yeah. Controlling the Republican Party for the CFR have been Dwight D. Eisenhower, John Foster Dulles, Thomas E. Dewey, Jacob Javits, Robert McNamara, Henry Cabot Lodge, Paul Hoffman, John Gardner, the Rockefeller clan, Elliot Richardson, Arthur Burns, Henry Kissinger, and Richard Nixon.
Richard Milhouse Nixon. I also
Nixon.
I have to go back and just point out how much I love when somebody uses the phrase "so-called." Like, it's like, to me, the most
so-called,
the most like snidest, most insulting thing you could put in print. It's like, so-called. This person is absolutely not anything. I deny the very basis of your self-identity.
I think you should add so-called. I think you should add so-called to things that don't even make sense.
So-called.
Like, I'm drinking this so-called water.
Yeah.
I'm on this so-called internet show. I'm talking into the,
I'm gonna
you
have.
could say so-called microphone because your mic is kind of trash.
So-called C. Sandbatch Groiper.
So-called C. Sandbatch Groiper. Yeah, Garrick Obama. Shout out. Richard Nixon now claims that he no longer belongs to the CFR. I'm following the double asterisks here. The notations in this book are complete fucking nonsense. Once again,
what was? Did we just go on a choose your own adventure? Oh, this for which footnote comes first?
Well, Boston Committee was for one of the other guys. Was for Edward Kennedy.
Yeah.
Richard Nixon now claims that he no longer belongs to the Council on Foreign Relations, having dropped out when the organization became an issue in his primary campaign for the governance of California in 1962. Nixon has never said why he dropped out, except what he literally just... Anyway, the fact that he has appointed over 110 CFR members to important positions in his administration speaks for itself. It should come as no surprise that the very same Richard Nixon who campaigned in 1968 as a conservative had already made his real position very clear to the insiders of the CFR by authoring an article in the CFR magazine Foreign Affairs in October 1967. The title of the Members of the Council on Foreign Relations article, Asia After Vietnam, revealed how the aspiring President Nixon would open a new policy towards Red China and bring realism to our American foreign policy. Realpolitik? Oh my God.
This was why a couple of years ago, like, I guess it's like, who was that guy that worked for Stratfor? Can't remember his name. 4 clubs, and I'll be waiting for you in the parking lot. But there was a guy, Mearsheimer. Yeah, that was him.
Oh,
John Mearsheimer got real big, and he's like, he really just, Zihan is the other guy I was trying to think of. Thank you, EL. But Peter Zihan worked for Stratfor, which I interviewed to work for Stratfor, but my Russian turned out to be mostly non-existent, and they wanted a Russian specialist. Strange inroads with me in Russia. But anyway, if you notice this, you'll notice Foreign Affairs is the name of this magazine, and they're so when everybody was getting all up in foreign policy realism, whatever, I'm like, that's literally just CFR shit from the 1960s. But to also sort of chart the decline of groups like the Council on Foreign Relations, Foreign Affairs is still around, and it's like one of the most bloated, old-fashioned, like turbo boomer, magazine organs that currently exists. Like, it's like the legacy media. Like, I don't even think anybody in the conservative movement still reads it, except for Ross Douthat or whatever that guy's name is. So, but I mean, it's still around. So CFR is still around, but they're not anything like they have nothing like the power that's being attributed to them here.
Well, and again, there are organizations that are essentially social networks, right? It's a prestige organization. Yes, we should be aware of these things, but you're just saying, oh, well, they all belong to this fucking country club.
Well, right? I mean, I will say that like the Council on Foreign Relations, there was a time whenever they he presents all this it's new information, but he points out it was a problem for Richard Nixon. People were
aware of it. Yeah,
people were very concerned about how much power was concentrated in the hands of this organization.
But it's just because people have this false this false and erroneous sort of impression that power should only exist in the hands of formal government organizations, which it doesn't, never has and cannot. Like, it's just not how stuff works. That's not how people work. So, you should be aware of it. You should be aware of what these, things are, what these networks are. But that's, anyway. The CFR's annual report for 1952 admitted that sometimes members in sensitive positions were forced to go underground and keep the membership secret. While it is true that every administration since FDR has been dominated by the CFR, the Nixon administration has set the all-time record by appointing over 110 CFR members to key positions. Bet that's been exceeded. Henry Kissinger, the Colonel House of the Nixon administration, dear God, came to his job directly from employment on the CFR staff. Kissinger represents the very opposite of everything Nixon said he stood for in his campaign. Both liberals and conservatives admit Kissinger is by far the most important man in the Nixon administration. Administrations, both, it is tough to downplay the importance of of Henry Kissinger. It is tough to say everywhere. He's extremely important and he's fucking everywhere. Yeah. He was, they sent him, what was it? They sent him to, was it North Korea or China? Like literally a couple of years ago, like right before he died, the Biden administration sent him to negotiate something. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? This man is an orb and 90.
Yes, he was like 93. He was like 2 feet tall.
He became more of a beach ball every year of his life. He's just like
put him in a box and mail him to China to negotiate.
He didn't even die. He just rolled away. No one could find him.
He's not dead. He's just lost.
He's just yeah. His punishment in hell will be to be Sisyphus's boulder.
But it's true, like you can't like, because I mean, again, there's a few people who will like get to be like really, they'll like read his thesis and they'll be like turn into like Kissinger stands or some shit like that. Like you don't want anything to do with that. The dude's like radiated like pure elemental evil.
Oh, I mean, tremendous. Like there's never been a more like subversive realpolitik person. I really think you do have to admire him for the level of depravity that he was willing to engage in for his entire life. Like I enjoy him in the same way that I enjoy Jolly on West.
I did meet him once. I met him once. So this is a true thing that happened. But it was only for like 10 minutes. But it was incredible, the gravitas that like he was, like the deference that everyone in the room with him like gave him. It was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the secret president. Yeah. All right. Administrations, both Democrat and Republican, come and go, but the CFR lingers on. This is why the more things seem to change, the more they remain the same. The fix is in at the top, where the same coterie of insiders bent on control of the world runs the show. As Professor Quigley admits, there does exist and has existed for a generation an international network which operates to some extent in the way the radical right believes the communists act. In fact, this network, which Quigley ain't wrong. In fact, this network, which we may identify as the roundtable groups, has no aversion to cooperating with the communists or any other groups, and frequently does so. Emphasis added. Yes, the insiders have no aversion to working with the communists, whose ostensible goal is to destroy them. While the insiders are serving champagne and caviar to their guests in their summer mansions at Newport, or entertaining other members of the social elite aboard their yachts, their agents are out enslaving and murdering people, and you are next on the list.
That paragraph. That paragraph goes so hard.
It reads like a Lenin speech.
Like I'm just sitting here listening. I'm like, yeah, Newport. And I was actually thinking about that Yankee apparel commercial from this weekend. That And I was like, that's too Yankee coded. I was like, it's got to be Newport Beach. And it was Newport Beach. But like, I was like, yeah, there's a lot of rich people in Newport Beach. I'm like, wait a second, enslaving and murdering.
Okay. Let's see here. Clearly, the Chicago Tribune's editorial of December 9th, 1950 on the CFR still applies. The members of the Council on Foreign Relations are persons of much more than average influence in their community. They have used the prestige that their wealth, their social position, and their education have given them to lead the country towards bankruptcy and military debacle. They should look at their hands. There is blood on them, the dried blood of the last war and the fresh blood of the present one, the Korean War. I'm pretty sure that Gary Allen said earlier in this book that no one had written an article on the Council on Foreign Relations, but he's quoting an awful lot of people.
Yeah, like
he said the only time I could find a reference was in Harper's Weekly, but now
the only reference I can find in the most popular magazine in the country.
Yeah. Anyway, it goes without saying that the CFR's hands are bloodier now with the gore of 50,000 Americans in Vietnam. Shamefully, the Council has succeeded in promoting as American policy the shipment of American aid and trade to the East European arsenal of the Viet Cong for the killing of our sons in the field. It should not be surprising to learn that there is, on the international level, an organizational equivalent of the CFR. This group calls itself the Bilderbergers.
Yeah.
If scarcely one American in 1,000 has any familiarity with the CFR, it is doubtful that 1 in 5,000 has any knowledge of the Bilderbergers. Again, this is not accidental.
Fast forward to 2024, there are over a dozen full-length documentaries done by vaping dudes named Chad in Interior America that will tell you everything you ever wanted to know about the Bilderbergers.
That's right. Where's Ian Carroll's TikTok?
There's an insane clown posse concept album about the Bilderbergers. No, I don't know that there is, but like
there's a The Whitest Kids You Know song starring kittens called Kitty History, which is literally just this book. And the Bilderbergers, it's like the sequel to this book, and the Bilderbergers feature heavily in it.
Right.
Kitty Bilderbergers.
And I'll tell I'm going to let him cook for a little bit.
Okay. The strange name of this group is taken from the site of the first meeting in May 1954, the Hotel de Bilderberg in Oosterbeek, Holland. The man who created the Bilderbergers is His Royal Highness Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands. The prince is an important figure in Royal Dutch Petroleum, Shell Oil, and the Société Générale de Belgique, a huge conglomerate cartel with worldwide holdings. The Bilderbergers meet once, or sometimes twice, a year. Those in attendance include leading political and financial figures from the United States and Western Europe. Prince Bernhard makes no effort to hide the fact that the ultimate goal of the Bilderbergers is a world government. In the meantime, while the New World Order is being built, the Bilderbergers coordinate the efforts of the European and American power elites. Prince Bernhard's counterpart among the American Bilderbergers is David Rockefeller, chairman of the board of the CFR, whose economic base is the giant Chase Manhattan Bank and Standard Oil. Among the other Bilderbergers from the world of ultra-high finance are Baron Edmund de Rothschild of the House of Rothschild, C. Douglas Dillon of the Council of Foreign Relations, of Dillon Reed & Co., Robert McNamara of the World Bank, Sir Eric Roll of S.G. Warburg & Company Limited, Piers Paul Schweitzer of the International Monetary Fund, and George Ball of Lehman Brothers.
I really want to know, because I don't even know what it is. I want to know the backstory on how the sovereign of the Netherlands got chosen as to be the ultimate bad guy in this paragraph. Like, where it's like so out of the blue. This is like coming up with like this issue,
I can think of one reason.
Going into the archive and coming out and being like, it's the Holy Roman Emperor.
Gary Allen desperately does not want to name them.
Right, yeah.
Desperately desperately does. He wants to walk you right up to noticing, and then say, "But no, don't worry. Only 3/4 of them are of that particular derivation."
No prince of Denmark ever called me racist.
That's true. No prince of Denmark ever did call me racist. Not everyone who attends one of the Bilderberger's secret meetings is an insider, but only men of the left are allowed to attend the private meetings following the general sessions. The avowedly socialist parties of Europe are well represented. Another example of the tie-in between the insiders of high finance and the ostensible leaders of the proletariat. Bilderberg policy is not planned by those who attend the conferences, but by the elite steering committee of insiders composed of 24 Europeans and 15 Americans. Past and present Americans of the Bilderberger steering committee include George W. Ball, Gardner Cowles, John H. Ferguson, Henry J. Hines II. Oh my God, I used ketchup today. Robert D. Murphy, David Rockefeller, Shepard Stone, James D. Zellerbach, Emilio G. Collado, Arthur H. Dean, Gabriel Hogg, C.D. Jackson, George Nebelstein, Dean Rusk, and General Walter Bedell Smith. Those who adhere to the accidental theory of history will claim that it is sheer coincidence that every single one of those named as past and present member of the Bilderberger Steering Committee is or was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. What do you think about that, Sandbatch?
I was following along with you. Did you just go through another textual tunnel, like rabbit tunnel?
I just went through another list of catalog of ships.
Yeah. I've never heard of most of these people. Like, he's just like bewildering me with names, and like I've been wondering. I'm like, are these names? I mean, I recognize some of them, of course. Like I know Dean Rusk was. Like I know who Robert McNamara is.
Sure.
But like, I'm wondering if any of these people were more high profile in the 1960s and 70s than they are now, because I just don't know who most of them are. I don't even care. I'm like, God.
My deal. I mean, my thought on this is once again, like, yes, these groups exist. Like these are the informal power centers that actually, yeah.
But like he does this thing. Only men of the left are allowed to attend the private meetings, which sort of directly contradicts like his like repeated insistence that there is no left or right, that there's no difference. So like, right, when it's convenient, there's no difference between the parties. When it's inconvenient for the other story, then the Republicans are and this was a new story at the time. This was like they're road testing the story at the time. They're doing an inner after party thing, Yeah,
Johnson has the real stuff. A shadowy cabal vying for power with members that hide their affiliation, like the John Birch Society.
John Birch Society. Wait a second.
Oh my God. Yeah. No. Of course. And like
EL says no mention of the Fuggers. Who are the Fuggers?
I don't know who the Fuggers are.
Who are the fucking Fuggers?
I don't know. We should probably say it more. It more. Yeah. The Bilderberger Advisory Committee forms are even more inner circle than the steering committee. It's just he's doing like, here are the social networks. It's like this is almost at the point where it's like Elon Musk no longer follows Stephen Miller on X.com.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's fuck. Nothing ever changes.
The Bilderberger Advisory Committee forms an even more inner circle than the steering committee. Americans on the advisory committee include Joseph E. Johnson. Oh no, Johnson, he's in the chat. All right. Dean Rusk, Arthur H. Dean, George Nebelstein, John S. Coleman, General Walter Bedell Smith, and Henry J. Hines II. Again, all are members of the CFR. All of those people were on the previous fucking list. God damn it. Except for Joe Johnson.
You're getting paid by
the previous letter. Yeah, you're getting paid by the fucking letter.
All
right.
Hey, the fuggers were that was a real thing. We were just so they were that was that family that had like adjusted for inflation, they had like $1 trillion, like just stupid amounts of money concentrated in one banking family.
So, I mean, where are they now? If they were so powerful, where are the Boogers now?
They probably became a shtetl folktale.
That's right. That's right. They're living on the kibbutz.
And Woodpit 420 wants everybody in the audience and to know that apparently
Elon Musk refollowed Stephen Miller today on X.com. Oh no. Or oh yes, as the case may be.
Yeah. You have to sort that out for yourself.
One would assume, that is, if one had not read this book, that hey, we're insiders now. We're insiders, but a different set of insiders.
Right.
We're cool. That when the world's leading parliamentarians and international tycoons met to discuss the planning of their various nations' foreign policies, that the news hawks from papers and television land would be screaming to high heaven that such an event held in secret makes a mockery of the democratic process. One might expect Walter Cronkite to be thundering in wrath about an elite clique meeting to plan our lives, or the New York Times editorialists to be pounding their smoking typewriters, fuming about the public's right to know. But of course, the landscape painters merely brush the Bilderbergers right out of existence and focus the public's attention on something like the conditions in the prisons or Coke bottles littering the highways. Since the Bilderbergers are a group of the left, or as the liberals in the media might say, but don't, a group of progressives, they are allowed to go on in peace and quiet planning for 1984. The fact that there is heavy Rockefeller, literally 1984. The fact that there is heavy Rockefeller, Chase Manhattan Bank, and CFR influence in the media might also have something to do with the fact that while everybody has heard of, say, the John Birch Society, and almost always in a derogatory manner from the Eastern establishment media, practically nobody has heard of the Bilderbergers. This is docs counter docs. We're dodging doxes.
But I do, yeah, they are, but I do like this sudden demarcation. This is like he's setting us up for, like, he's just casually dropping that he's going to make a distinction between the East and the Western establishment. And this is I've referred to this as the Cowboy Yankee War that I've referred to a couple of times, which is another one of these. Like,
hope we get it.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get it too.
As this is written, there have been 29 Bilderberger meetings to date. They usually last 3 days and are held in remote but plush quarters. The participants are housed in one location and are protected by a thorough security network. Decisions are reached, resolutions adopted, plans of action initiated, but only the Bilderbergers ever know for sure what occurred. We must assume that these people did not congregate merely to discuss their golf scores. The press naturally is not allowed to be present, although occasionally a brief press conference is held at the end of the meeting, at which time the news media are given in very general terms the Bilderberger version of what was discussed. Why all the secrecy if there is really nothing to hide? Why do the Ford, Rockefeller, and Carnegie Foundations finance meetings if they are not important? Yes, why?
So who else is going to care about your golf score?
I mean, I've been told many times that I should learn to play golf, like, just for business reasons.
I think it's a thing, but like I think it's like it's becoming more of a thing now. But again, it's one of those things that I'm left out of because I'm left-handed. There's like no golf course in the world that's like not designed to just make me miserable.
Yeah. You know, it's a little funny that the the builder. So Alex Jones was allowed to get close enough to Bohemian Grove, but he could never make it into a Bilderberg group meeting.
Woodpit 420 says, "Get some lefty clubs." I mean, thanks, but
That's perfect.
It's the same way. It works the same way as it does in baseball. So, like left-handed hitters in baseball, they're always going to, like, when they get out ahead of the ball and they pull it. Again, like when they really hit the ball hard, it tends to yank yank off towards right field.
Yeah, when I get in front of a ball, I tend to yank off.
Yeah. There's no difference. Oh, come on. There's absolutely difference. This is totally acknowledged. Like golf, especially.
He's a lefty, a big lefty.
Especially for boomer golf courses, which are designed to make people seem better than they are. They're like all golf courses favor right-handed players. It's true.
What is it? The stupid phrase about golf? Good walk spoiled.
He has a lot
like
of
that.
them.
There's a lot of them. All right. Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, head of the secret One World Bilderberger movement, confers with President Nixon, a former Nazi SS stormtrooper. We had a lot of fun. Bernhard now works with the Rothschilds, and I'm now in favor of the Bilderbergers.
Wait a second. Bernhard was a Nazi?
Yeah, he was a Nazi stormtrooper. How did really buried that lead? I think he didn't
lead with that?
I think he didn't want the audience to be like, oh, well, maybe these guys have the right idea. Bernhard now works with the Rothschilds and communists to promote a world superstate of the elite. Bernhard holds yearly secret meetings with high U.S. officials, bankers, and industrialists to map plans for merging the U.S. and Soviet Union into a world government.
I'm now
after
remembering
last meeting, Nixon devalued the dollar and opened up trade with Red China.
Okay, that's a big deal. But
go ahead. Yeah, but we don't know if it was like the next day or like it just one happened and then weeks later another did.
I'm also suddenly remembering though that last week he cited James Bond as a reputable source.
So true. Edmund and Guy de Rothschild, leaders of the French Rothschild clan. Rothschilds are closely associated with Prince Bernhard in business, the Royal Dutch Shell Company, and in the building of a one-world supergovernment with the Soviets. Time of December 20th, 1963, says of Guy, Guy is every inch a Rothschild. He personifies much of what the family name stands for. He is a friend and confidant of some of France's politicians. Most of all, he is dedicated to enlarging the fortune of his bank. Guy heads a versatile clan of modern-day Rothschilds. Edmund, reputedly the richest of the French Rothschilds, is worth $500 million personally, according to estimates. Fucking bitch. Bitch made money.
The chat is out of control, by the way.
$500 million.
We have BPD chick yanking my balls Groiber from EL, and then we also have I've never heard Mickelson complain. I'm about to lose track. I'm crashing out on the internet. Like on a space the other night, I got really mad at somebody and just went off on him for 45 minutes. I'm about to lose frame totally.
That's some really impressive staying power, actually.
Dude, I got really mad. And and Woodpit 420 is now about to draw me totally off topic to just argue about left-handed golf disadvantages for the next.
You want to know what the most terrifying thing about lefties is? The prevalence. I having polled my group chats several times, I have noted that left-handed people exist in right-wing internet group chats at approximately 5 times the expected rate.
Yeah, it's that was what's the other
one? It's really weird.
Yeah, that one's really weird. But I also there's also strong. This one makes more sense. They both
as a right-handed Chad, by the way. I disavow the lefties.
I would
it pains me to do so.
It makes sense that there's a lot more left-handed people, but for reasons that nobody wants to get into.
EL with the eugenic explanation.
See, I was thinking
left-handedness is associated with high mutational load.
I was thinking demonic spirits, but yeah, that works too.
Sure, but Stormy Waters is left-handed.
Oh, so am I. Both of us are.
MG Cap flushing out the evil left-hand pathwalkers in every group chat. Look, I'm not saying maybe one day we'll read some David Miat on this. Just in terms of methodology, like insight rolls and sinister strategies are valid strategies. But you shouldn't do it for literally the devil.
Insight rolls. Oh man, if we ever do that, I'll tell my 09A story, but I won't tell my 09A story under any other circumstance.
Oh my God. All right. The most recent meeting took place at Lawrence Rockefeller's Woodstock Inn in Woodstock, Vermont, April 23rd, 24th, 25th, 1971. Apparently, the only newspaper to carry a substantial story on the meeting was the Rutland, Vermont Herald, whose reporter could acquire only sketchy information about what the meeting was all about. The April 20th, 420, 1971 issue of the Herald reported a rather tight lid of security was being kept on the conference. A closed-door meeting was held in Woodstock last week to brief a handful of local officials on some phases of the conference. One participant of the meeting insisted Monday that the officials were told the meeting would be an international peace conference. However, other reliable sources said the conference will deal with international finance. Well, is peace and finance not the same thing?
I mean, let's face it, they are.
The Woodstock Inn will apparently be sealed up like Fort Knox. No press coverage will be allowed, with the exception of issuing a statement at the close of the meeting on Sunday. When Prince Bernard arrived at Boston's Logan Airport, he did admit to reporters that the subject of the conference would be the change in the world role of the United States. Isn't it nice to have changes in America's role in the world decided upon by Bernard, Rothschild, and Rockefeller? There is real democracy in action, as they say. Present at the scene to carry back orders to Mr. Nixon was CFR Rockefeller errand boy, the president's #1 advisor on foreign affairs, Henry Kissinger. Shortly after the Woodstock meeting, two ominous and role-changing events occurred. Henry Kissinger went to Peking to arrange for the acceptance of Red China as a member of the family of trading nations, and an international monetary crisis developed, after which the dollar was devalued. As the British statesman and Rothschild confidant Benjamin Disraeli wrote in Coningsby, "So you see, my dear Coningsby, that the world is governed by very different personages from what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes."
Was that Benjamin Disraeli, or is he just quoting the network?
He's quoting Benjamin Disraeli. I assume that if there is a quote from a book, like that he got it right, because it's easy to verify.
Yeah, he probably got that. Last time I tried to call him out,
you tried to call him out on the dumbest thing, the easiest thing to verify.
It seems so ludicrous to me that
for those
Karl
who
Marx
didn't listen to our previous episode, and are for some reason listening to this one, we love our entire audience, but he tried to call out Alan on the order of the platforms in the Communist Manifesto.
It's true. I tried to run with the big dogs and had to go sit back on the porch.
You know who else sits on the porch?
What? No, I don't.
The most important. Okay, chapter 6. We are actually getting pretty close to the end of this book. It is we're shockingly close. There are only 8 chapters.
Are we going to finish it today?
No, absolutely not. There's no way.
Yeah.
No, we're 2/3 of the way through approximately. So, chapter 6, the Rockefellers and the Reds. Canny viewers will note that the thumbnail for this episode is Rockefeller Plaza lit up in red light. The most important American of those different personages who run the world from behind the scenes are the Rockefellers. The Rockefeller clan reportedly has worked with the Rothschilds and their agents since the 1880s, when the original John D. arranged to get a rebate on every barrel of oil he and his competitors shipped over Kuhn, Loeb and Company controlled Pennsylvania and Baltimore and Ohio railroads. It has been a profitable partnership ever since, although there appear to have been areas in which the two financial dynasties competed. The involvement of the Rockefellers with their supposed blood enemies, the communists, dates back to the Bolshevik Revolution. During the
Oh, man.
1920s,
Uh-oh.
established
Uh-oh.
his new economic policy, the same name Mr. Nixon applied to his wage price control package, when the supposedly hated capitalists were invited back into Russia.
Where are we going with that?
We're not reading the post, Johnson, but thank you.
A so-called monkey on a so-called porch.
Okay,
Thank
well,
you,
you just
Mr.
fucking
Johnson.
read it, so
What? There's nothing wrong with being a monkey on a porch.
I mean, they got to hang out somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And speaking of just hanging out instead of being at work, you too could assist us in that fine and laudable goal by sneeding a super chat or two.
Be sure to sneed those super chats.
Super chats, folks. We appreciate it. Sandbatch needs to make sure that he can buy his next ticket to the Bilderberg Group meetings.
Right,
his
yeah.
handler decided to stop paying for his tickets because he isn't producing enough right-wing bloodshed.
Yeah.
They keep trying to get him to calculate how much ammonium nitrate will fit in a variety of containers, and he's just fucking bad at math.
Yeah.
So you're safe for now, but well,
excuse me, send me off to the Bilderberg. I'll wear one of those little like hats with
an obvious camera in it, with like a VHS camcorder in it,
yes.
with incredibly loud whirring sound. It should be a Super 8, so you have to rewind it. You have to like wind it up a bunch.
Oh, Dad, I would do. Do you know how much I wish I had a Super 8?
I have to fucking buy one. They're like $100.
They're like $5,000.
What? No way.
Oh, if you get an old one, but it's gonna have all kinds of fucking problems then.
All right, chat. We got a $5,000 buy Sandbatch a Super 8 so he can do an in-person. You know, actually, what you should do is just find out where the Bilderberg meeting is and install Grindr on your phone, and then just see who wants to bum you.
Chat, if Chat buys me a Super 8, it can even be a dinky one. If Chat buys me a Super 8, I'll make a movie.
Okay, that's great. I mean, that is how Project Veritas works anyway. Right.
We should be doing all of our shit where it has to be pre-sold. Like, yeah, if you motherfuckers send me enough money, I'll make a fucking movie. I'll dance like a monkey. Be sure to see those super chats.
A so-called monkey.
A so-called monkey on a so-called porch. Follow us for more algorithmic faux pas.
That's right. All right. You know what? Today has been a great day for Tookie's Mag because we have of course our weekly show right now, Library of Mass Destruction, but we also David and channel friend Miles McNaughton released a digest episode on grammar and a spirited defense of the passive voice. So,
oh my god,
definitely check that out.
Oh my god, no.
What, you don't like the passive voice?
In English, no. English is fuck.
There's division in paradise.
You can do passive voice in Latin with like no loss of agency, but man, in English,
oh no, there is Discord.
They snuck that one in under me.
A video was released.
What it says may or may not be,
disagreement arose.
Yeah. All right.
The involvement of the Rockefellers with their never mind. The Federal Reserve CFR insiders began pushing to open up communist Russia to U.S. trade soon after the revolution. However, at that time, public opinion ran so high against the Bolsheviks because of their barbarism that it was official U.S. government policy not to deal with the outlaw government. The U.S. did not officially recognize the Bolsheviks until 1933. In the meantime, the Soviet economy was in a shambles and the people were starving to death. Communism would not have collapsed had it not been aided by the insiders. The Bolsheviks were originally saved from collapse by Herbert Hoover, who raised money to buy food, which was appropriated by Lenin and his gangsters. They used it as a tool to subdue starving peasants who had been resisting their newly imposed slave masters. While Hoover's humanitarian gesture saved the Soviet regime, the Russian economy was still in total chaos. In came the Vanderlips, Harrimans, and Rockefellers. One of the first to jump in was Frank Vanderlip, an agent of the Rockefellers and one of the Jekyll Island conspirators, president of the Rockefeller First National City Bank, who compared Lenin to George Washington. And we have an inline citation that I will not read. I don't understand why the citations in this book are so messy. The Rockefellers assigned their public relations agent, Ivy Lee, to sell the American public the idea that the Bolsheviks were merely misunderstood idealists who were actually kind benefactors of mankind. Professor Anthony Sutton of Stanford University's Hoover Institution notes in his highly authoritative Western Technology and Soviet Economic Development, not to be confused with Western Tricknology and the Economic Development of the White Man by Yakub. Quite predictably, 180 pages later, Lee concludes that the communist problem is merely psychological. By this time, he is talking about Russians, not communists, and concludes that they're all right. He suggests the United States should not engage in propaganda, makes a plea for peaceful coexistence, and suggests the United States would find it sound policy to recognize the USSR and advance credits. After the Bolshevik Revolution, Standard Oil of New Jersey bought 50% of the Noble's huge Caucasus oil fields, even though the property had theoretically been nationalized. In 1927, Standard Oil of New York built a refinery in Russia, thereby helping the Bolsheviks put their economy back on its feet. Professor Sutton states, this was the first United States investment in Russia since the revolution. Shortly thereafter, Standard Oil of New York and its subsidiary, Vacuum Oil Company, concluded a deal to market Soviet oil in European countries, and it was reported that a loan of $75,009,000 to the Bolsheviks was arranged. They just really needed that 9,000.
You know, I'm so disappointed in him. He seems to have skipped over the Merchants of Death hearings.
Yep. You want more Merchants of Death?
I mean,
I bet he's going to get to it.
No, he's already too far in the timeline.
Yeah, but he's not like he hasn't been at all like he hasn't just done this chronologically at all.
That's true. There's like
this
no
book is not chronological.
There's no rhyme or reason whatsoever.
Yeah. Let's see. We have been unable to find out if Standard Oil was even theoretically expropriated by the communists. Sutton writes, only the Danish telegraph concessions, the Japanese fishing, coal, and oil concessions, and the Standard Oil lease remained after 1935. Wherever Standard Oil would go, Chase National Bank was sure to follow. The Rockefellers' Chase Bank was later merged with the Warburg's Manhattan Bank to form the present Chase Manhattan Bank. In order to rescue the Bolsheviks, who were supposedly an archenemy, the Chase National Bank was instrumental in establishing the American-Russian Chamber of Commerce in 1922. President of the chamber was Reeve Schley, a vice president of Chase National Bank. According to Professor Sutton, in 1925, negotiations between Chase and Prombank extended beyond the finance of raw materials and mapped out a complete program for financing Soviet raw material exports to the U.S. and imports of U.S. cotton and machinery. Sutton also reports that Chase National Bank and Equitable Trust Company were leaders in the Soviet credit business.
Soviet credit business. I have nothing to add to this. I'm I'm amazed.
Yeah,
it's a whole paragraph that but it concerns me that I don't have anything to add to it, which makes me think they're like
to the international finance of the Soviet Union.
Yeah,
from American and European entities.
Yeah,
but I mean, we knew that. This is just a list of specific instances.
Right. I'm not Thomas 77. I don't. This is not.
Oh my God, Thomas Sevens. He would probably be like this. This book is a plant.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Too much love for Soviet women. What makes you think I have a thing for Slavic women?
Well, Never mind.
The fact that I didn't
Never
even
mind.
the fact that I didn't even consider that it was an accusation lobbed at anyone but me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The lady doth protest too much. The Rockefeller Chase National Bank was also involved in selling Bolshevik bonds to the United States in 1928. Patriotic organizations denounced the Chase as an international offense. Chase was called a disgrace to America. They will go to any lengths for a few dollars profit.
I love how but there's always like some part of me deep down that's so proud of America, in the sense that I'm like, we turned communism into America used to be
communism sounds like an opportunity.
You used to be able to invest in communism. you know.
Congressman Louis McFadden, chairman of the House Banking Committee, maintained a speech to his fellow congressmen. The Soviet government has been given United States Treasury funds by the Federal Reserve Board and the Federal Reserve Banks, acting through the Chase Bank and Guarantee Trust Company and other banks in New York City. Open up the books of Amtorg, the trading organization for the Soviet government in New York, and Gostorg, the general office of the Soviet Trade Organization and of the State Bank of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, and you will be staggered to see how much American money has been taken from the United States Treasury for the benefit of Russia. Find out what business has been transacted for the State Bank of Soviet Russia by its correspondent, the Chase Bank of New York. But the Rockefellers apparently were not alone in financing the communist arm of the insiders' conspiracy. According to Professor Sutton, there is a report in the State Department files that names Kuhn Loeb and Company, the long-established and important financial house in New York City, as the financier of the first 5-year plan. See U.S. State Department. I'm not reading the thing.
Sutton has been a bulldog here. He's an absolute bulldog.
Professor Sutton proves conclusively in his 3-volume history of Soviet technological development that the Soviet Union was almost literally manufactured by the USA. Sutton quotes a report by Avril Harriman to the State Department in June 1944 as stating, Stalin paid tribute to the assistance rendered by the United States to Soviet industry before and during the war. He said that about 2/3 of all the large industrial enterprise in the Soviet Union had been built with United States help or technical assistance.
You know, I just want to point out that like the awful state of American literacy today. If this character, like this character who like can't even get in-text citations even almost a little bit right, and frequently seems to have no idea what he's talking about, or sometimes too much of an idea of what he's talking about, was like supposedly like Joe Everybody in the United States is like thumbing through copies of the Warren Commission and Professor Sutton's 3-volume history of Soviet technological development. People just be reading a lot more shit back then than they do now.
Well, they didn't have all this pornography.
No, it's not pornography. And then
they hadn't invented trannies yet.
That's it.
Remember that this was a time when the Soviets had already established an extensive spy network in the U.S., and the Communist Daily Worker newspaper regularly called for the destruction of our liberty and the Sovietizing of America. I mean, of course, also, as we know, part of the reason why the U.S. gives money to other countries is to subtly subvert them. Like, that's part of the instrument of control. That is part of the instrument of control. And so
it works well here too. See, yeah, he's really selling the American like sort of slow drip against it. This is one of those times where I'll like differ with Thomas, I think, on like and a lot of the other like sort of revisionists. I'm like, you're really selling the American slow drip of poison to the communist world. You're really underselling it. Like, we did some actually sort of incredible work to keep World War III from ever happening, and despite literal communists like apparatchiks, everything else, it's
well, and the
this book makes me see broadcast static sometimes, because I'm just like, because I want to like just cut really hard into like opposing narrative, but then like
look,
don't go too hard the other way.
The fall of the Soviet Union was 100% a project of subtle subversion from the United States.
Right. Yeah.
So,
it's like it works so well, actually, in hindsight,
Yeah, exactly. It worked. It took a long time. Maybe it was stupid. Maybe it was kind of stupid, but it did work. The problem is that like we had a mental model of Russians and we tried the same thing on the Chinese and it didn't fucking work.
Oops.
Yeah. Oops. We didn't have the right mental model and we still don't. So Sutton shows that there is hardly a segment of the Soviet economy which is not a result of the transference of Western, particularly American technology. This cannot be wholly the result of accident. For 50 years, the Federal Reserve, Council on Foreign Relations, Rockefeller insider crowd has advocated and carried out policies aimed at increasing the power of their satellite, the Soviet Union. Meanwhile, Americans spend $75 billion a year on defense to protect itself from the enemy the insiders are building up. I don't, again, like, I think that actually his understanding of the relationship here is completely backwards. Like,
yeah.
What has been true of the past is even more valid today. The leader in promoting the transfer of technology and increased aid and trade with the communists is the Council on Foreign Relations. On October 7th, 1966, President Lyndon Johnson, a man who had appointed a CFR member to virtually every strategic position in his administration, stated, "We intend to press for legislative authority to negotiate trade agreements which could extend most favored nation tariff treatment to European communist states. We will reduce export controls on East-West trade with respect to hundreds of non-strategic items." The New York Times reported 1 week later, on October 13th, 1966, "The United States put into effect today one of President Johnson's proposals for stimulating East-West trade by removing restrictions on the export of more than 400 commodities to the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. Among the categories from which items have been selected for export relaxation are vegetables, cereals, fodder, hides, crude and manufactured rubber, pulp and waste paper, textiles and textile fibers, crude fertilizers, metal ores and scrap, petroleum, gas and derivatives, chemical compounds and products, dyes, medicines, fireworks, detergents, plastic materials, metal products and machinery, and scientific and professional instruments. Virtually every one of these non-strategic items has a direct or indirect use in war." Everything has a direct or indirect use in war. Later items, such as rifle cleaning compounds, electronic equipment, and radar, were declared non-strategic and cleared for shipments to the Soviet Union. The trick simply is to declare almost everything non-strategic. A machine gun is still considered strategic and therefore may not be shipped to the communists, but the tools for making the machine guns and the chemicals to propel the bullets have been declared non-strategic. Meanwhile, nearly 50,000 Americans have died in Vietnam. The Viet Cong and North Vietnamese receive 85% of their war materials from Russia and the Soviet bloc nations. Since their economies are incapable of supporting a war, the communist arm of the conspiracy needs help from the finance capitalist arm. The United States has been financing and equipping both sides of the terrible Vietnamese war, killing our own soldiers by proxy. Again, the landscape painters in the mass media have kept the American public from learning this provable fact.
Did this happen? Were we funding the Viet Cong?
We weren't directly funding the Viet Cong, no. What we were doing was giving foreign aid and material to Russia, engaging in trade with them, and then they were supplying the VCs.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And NVA.
But what is the conservative solution here? It's like, yeah, we recognize that they're too poor to even make war on their own, so we're just gonna let them bottom out, and certainly nothing worse will rush in to fill that vacuum. There's like no chance anything worse is coming. No.
Yeah, again, like the idea that we should trade with our adversaries in order to decrease hostilities, number one, has a lot of currency. The other is that we should offer foreign aid and structure to make them dependent upon us. So there are those reasons that are not necessarily to the benefit of the communists, of the Soviets in this case, I should say.
Right.
So yeah. Not surprisingly, the Rockefellers have been leaders in championing this bloody trade. On January 16th, 1967, one of the most incredible articles ever to appear in a newspaper graced the front page of the establishment's daily, the New York Times. Under the headline, Eaton joins Rockefellers to spur trade with Reds, the article stated, an alliance of family fortunes linking Wall Street and the Midwest is going to try to build economic bridges between the free world and communist Europe. The International Basic Economy Corporation, controlled by the Rockefeller brothers, and Tower International Incorporated, headed by Cyrus S. Eaton Jr., Cleveland financier, plan to operate in promoting trade between the Iron Curtain countries, including the Soviet Union. International Basic Economy Corporation, IBEC, is run by Richard Aldrich, grandson of Federal Reserve plotter Nelson Aldrich, and Rodman Rockefeller, of the Council of Foreign Relations, Rocky's son. On October 20th, 1969, IBEC announced that N.M. Rothschild and Sons of London had entered into partnership with the firm. Cyrus Eaton Jr. is the son of the notoriously pro-Soviet Cyrus Eaton, who began his career as secretary to John D. Rockefeller. It is believed that Eaton's rise to power in finance resulted from backing by his mentor. The agreement between Tower International and IBEC continues an old alliance. Although Eaton's name does not appear in the CFR's membership rolls, the Reese Committee, which investigated foundations for Congress in 1953, found that Eaton was a secret member. Among the non-strategic items which the Rockefeller-Eaton axis is going to build for the communists are 10 rubber goods plants, including 2 synthetic rubber plants worth $200 million. Mr. Eaton explains in the Times article, these people are setting up new automobile plants, and they know that they have got to have tire factories. Under the Nixon administration, which, contrary to campaign promises, has multiplied trade with the Reds tenfold, American concerns are building the world's largest truck factory for the communists. Trucks are necessary for a nation's war machine, and truck factories can be converted to the production of tanks, as was done during World War II. The U.S. will provide the Soviets with both the facilities to build the trucks and the tires, or tank treads, for them to roll on.
But I was wondering, whenever this argument was proffered in the 1970s, where were they going with it?
What do you mean?
Are they literally building up to a maybe we picked the wrong side?
Well, so the weird thing about this argument is that, otherwise this kind of boomer, I don't know if you really say they're boomer cons, this kind of conservatism valued free trade. So what do you free trade except with commies is that the argument, which is fine. It's a fine argument.
Totally is the argument.
Yeah, it's a fine argument. I think we, obviously I'm in favor of industry protectionism for the United States.
Right.
But he doesn't seem to be making a principled case for industry protectionism for the United States.
I'm just not sure how after, if these arguments are being made before World War II, and there are people in the United States complaining about all this money, especially during the Great Depression. There are these people who are complaining about all this overseas development money that is going to the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
I don't understand how you can, in 1970, make, from an American policy perspective, I don't understand how you can make the argument in 1970 that building the Soviets truck factories in the 1930s did not pay off in a big way. In exchange for this, we got them to soak up.
This is 1969.
Okay, yeah. I guess. Still though, what is the alternative? You're just gonna have this country that now has I don't know how many they had at the time, well over 1,000 nuclear warheads. Yeah, we're just gonna let them collapse into their folk superstitions. Dangerous.
Yeah, if we hadn't basically given them nukes, then the situation would have been very different. But
as an appreciator of the Slavic peoples, I can assure you that their folk traditions are sharp.
in any case,
Like Johnson says, you know who also favored free trade? That's right. It was Karl Marx.
Those free trade Marxists. Among the non-strategic items, which let me see. In addition, the Rockefellers and Eatons are constructing a $50 million aluminum producing plant for the Reds. Aluminum for jet planes is considered non-strategic under Johnson-Nixon doctrine. Even more incredibly, the Times reveals last month Tower International reached a tentative agreement with the Soviet patent and licensing organization Licensentorg, covering future licensing and patent transactions. Till now, Mr. Eaton said, the Russians have left the buying and selling of licenses and patents to the Amtorg Trading Corporation, the official Soviet agency in this country for promoting Soviet-American trade. This means that the Rockefellers and Eatons have a monopoly on the transfer of technological capability to the supposed enemies of the super rich, the Soviet Union. According to the Times, Mr. Eaton acknowledged that the difficulties that Amtorg representatives had encountered here in trying to arrange licensing agreements with American companies. As you can imagine, he said, it is almost impossible for a Russian to walk into the research department of an American aerospace company and try to arrange the purchase of a patent. Okay, so a few things. What?
Why would that be?
Why should that be easy? Yeah, exactly. It shouldn't be easy. As you can imagine, yeah. Okay, but the thing is, again, Alan here is quoting the New York Times, which is allegedly
the
in the pocket of the CFR.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So it's incredible. Sloppy Joe Stalin, by the way. Yeah, the 60s is too late for the White Army, but the United States did initially. In fact, a lot of this, one of the things is that all these people leave off is that we did initially intervene in the Russian Civil War on behalf of the whites, but it was such a shit show that we sort of quickly abandoned. There's more problems with them bringing up British influence to figure out why we were even there in the first place. But yeah. And one of the things I think is really interesting here is also, you could tell at this point in the text, because they're no longer really even talking about the left or the political opposition. This is now a full bore anti-Nixon screed so you can really see what they're going for is they're cleaving off. So Richard Nixon has won in 1972. I think he won 48 states, okay. But that middle American demographic that Nixon required to win in 1968, they're going in to try to they're trying to peel that middle American demographic off of Richard Nixon and into the emergent conservative wing of the Republican Party. So they're really doing that transition from the sixth and the seventh party systems. What I'm starting to think is actually the real point of this book, that the goal is actually to torpedo Nixon.
Oh, okay. So you like that that in addition to sort of that the very that the esoteric meaning of it is to torpedo Nixon, but that also there's the desire to make these informal networks more known.
Yeah. I mean,
to tiptoe people up to the to noticing.
I've spent enough time around these people that I know they really believe all of this. Well, they really believe it right up to the point where it's complicated. But yeah, I'm seeing this is the emergent conservative wing of the Republican Party making a move on the New Dealers is what's going on here. Trying to capitalize on really probably the sort of botched pullout in Vietnam. Because they're hitting the anti-Vietnam stuff way harder.
Yeah, whenever I'm in a Vietnamese, I always botch the pullout.
Yeah. Womp, womp, womp. Be sure to sneed those super chats.
Be sure to sneed those super chats for more excellent content. Let's see. Cyrus Eaton Jr. is the son of the notoriously pro-Soviet Cyrus Eaton, who began his career as a secretary to John D. Rockefeller. It is believed that Eaton's rise to power and I already read this. 10 rubber plants. God damn it. All right. Nikita Khrushchev, the infamous butcher of Budapest, Nelson Rockefeller, and Cyrus Eden. Man, it's amazing how much shorter Khrushchev is than the other two. I guess Cyrus Eden is the short one. There we go.
Yeah, Khrushchev was kind of a big dude. Stalin was a remarkably small guy.
I'm just joking about the photo.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty squunched, isn't it?
It's pretty squanched. Yeah. When communist dictators visit the U.S., they do not visit the laborers or union leaders, but hobnob with industrial leaders. There is little, if any, attempt by the red dictators to identify with the working class. The avowedly pro-communist industrialist Cyrus Eden started his business career as secretary to John D. Rockefeller, and Rockefeller family is believed to be largely responsible for his fortune. The Rockefeller and Eaton families have now joined forces to build war production plants behind the Iron Curtain so that the communists can become a bigger threat to the U.S. survival. America spends $70 billion a year ostensibly on war in Vietnam, on defense, and keeps Rockefellers build aluminum mills for communists. Only the absence of a formal declaration of war in Vietnam keeps the Eatons and Rockefellers from being actionable for treason. They have the blood of nearly 50,000 American servicemen on their hands. Wonderland Shadow. Tri-Faith America, how Catholics and Jews held. What? I feel like that was cut off or something.
No, that's a reference. That's
and Program to Kill by David McGowan.
Are you just out of curiosity, are you familiar with Tri-Faith America?
I'm not familiar with Tri-Faith.
Okay,
America.
so this is actually a book that was assigned. It was just like a assigned lecture to me in grad school. Was like we read this book called Tri-Faith America, and it's like out of the generation of like histories. It's like the 1619 Project almost. Like it's so incredibly turbo woke that it like kind of sort of accidentally reveals some really interesting shit. And
okay.
like one of them is, and it works from an old conservative, not really conservative, one of these old New Dealer screeds that really probably go in the consensus history. There's another book that goes with it called The Spiritual Industrial Complex. They almost can't be taken apart. But Tri-Faith America is a book about how Catholics and Jews, like especially Catholic and Jewish think tanks in particular hijacked captured the Middle American Protestant populist vote in the 1960s with the 60s and 70s with this new concept of movement conservatism.
Okay.
There's a lot going on there.
And Wonderland Shadow, yes, sorry, book recommendations, understood. Program to Kill, I don't know if we'll do Program to Kill. I love it, obviously, but it's also kind of been covered a lot. Maybe if we did a McGowan book, we'd do weird happenings in the canyon, something like that.
The Tri-Faith America is too academic. The Protestant Catholic Jew book that it draws from though is an interesting text.
Yeah. Let's see here. Clearly, certainly every loyal American will say to himself, well, I would hope to God the Soviets couldn't walk into our defense plants and buy a patent. The Rockefellers and Eatons have solved the problem for communists. Now, instead of dealing with an official agency of the Soviet government, American concerns will be dealing with the Rockefellers. Meanwhile, nearly 50,000 Americans have died in Vietnam, many of them killed by weapons which the Rockefellers directly or indirectly supplied to our avowed enemies. Only the technicality of the lack of formal declaration of war prevents the Rockefellers trading the blood of dead Americans from being actionable as treason. Thus, the purchase of patents for the communists, the Rockefellers, are virtually in charge of research and development for the Soviet military machine, allowing the Soviets to mass produce American developments. The transfer of such knowledge is even more important than the sale of weapons. A process that may have taken an American corporation a decade to develop is transferred in toto to the communists. Does it make sense to spend $75 billion a year on national defense and then deliberately increase the war-making potential of an avowed enemy? It does to Mr. Rockefeller and the insiders. Since the Rockefellers have contracted to arrange for patents for the Soviets, they are by dictionary definition communist agents. Would it not be more accurate to define the communists as Rockefeller agents? No.
I have Rockefeller saturation.
I mean, this is what we signed up for.
I'm at my, I do like, this is like, I have so little patience with it. Like, I'm being really kind. Like, even whenever I was like much younger and like thought there was anything like really being revealed here, I had like no patience with like this, like the interminable slamming on the Rockefellers. I'm like, what the hell did the Rockefellers do to get singled out in front of, you know, possibly some other names?
Sure.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Indicative of this was a strange event which occurred in October of 1964. David Rockefeller, president of the Chase Manhattan Bank and chairman of the board of the Council on Foreign Relations, took a vacation in the Soviet Union. This is a peculiar place for the world's greatest imperialist to take his vacation, since much of communist propaganda deals with taking all of David's wealth away from him and distributing it to the people. A few days after,
first name basis with David Rockefeller now. Like, fuck.
That's right. A few days after Rockefeller ended his vacation in the Kremlin, Nikita Khrushchev was recalled from a vacation at a Black Sea resort to learn that he had been fired. How strange. As far as the world knew, Khrushchev was the absolute dictator of the Soviet government, and more important, head of the Communist Party, which runs the USSR. Who has the power to fire the man who was supposedly the absolute dictator? Did David Rockefeller journey to the Soviet Union to fire an employee? Obviously, the position of premier in the Soviet Union is a figurehead, with the true power residing elsewhere. Perhaps in New York. Okay.
Dum dum dum.
Interesting. I do not think. I think that certainly international power is exerted that resulted in Khrushchev being removed from his office. However, it would be tough to say that. It would be tough to lay that all on specifically one guy. Again, like, yeah, he's the agent. He is a powerful agent of a vast network of people who are in power in the West. Like, why is it a network, right? Why is it a network in all of these other instances, but then you do special pleading by, like, whenever you just want to lay it on one dude? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not him and the rest of the Council on Foreign Relations, et cetera, et cetera. It's David Rockefeller.
Right. So, yeah. It's like it gets monomaniacal.
Yeah.
David Rockefeller lived for fucking ever too.
The Perestroika Deception by Anatoly Golitsyn.
Is it cited?
No. This is Wonderland Shadow. No, gives us $2 to recommend another book.
That one I have brought up before as a great book. That one. It inserts. There's so much static that gets inserted into this narrative, this one that we're reading now, and it's probably like published, but it's wild. That one is legitimately crazy. It alleges that the Soviet Union never fell, for one.
Oh, that it was a that it's still going.
Yeah, that it alleges that the KGB like sort of shed the corporeal husk of like running a communist state and just becomes like a parasitic influence in the United States, and that we are in fact the Soviet Union now.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that.
It's next level. It is next level.
So interesting. I don't necessarily. Okay. I mean, kind of sick. I kind of wonder where. I kind of feel like all of the brain viruses seem to be originating from the United States, though. So I don't know how they could have had. I don't know how they could have had the mimetic armaments in order to do that.
Here's the thing: is that this is where all that stuff about about firing James Jesus Angleton comes in. It's like, again, like I said, it's like such a through the look. You know what it is? It's LaRouche. It's Lyndon LaRouche is who it is. It's LaRouche. It's LaRouche. You know what I'm talking about? Oh, yeah. It's the LaRoucheite stuff is what it is.
That one sounds more interesting than reading it. David McGowan again. I will say.
I don't even. McGowan's the Laurel Canyon guy.
Yeah. Well, and Program to Kill, of course, which is kind of probably his bigger one. Yeah.
That was a yawn.
That was a yawn.
My first ever yawn.
Ever? You've never yawned before in your entire life?
Nope. No.
Babby just took his first yawn.
Yeah.
That's excellent. All right. Let's see here. Indicative of this was a strange event which occurred in October of 1964. I already read this. Let's see. For 5 decades, the communists have based their propaganda on the theme that they are going to destroy the Rockefellers and the other super rich. Yet we find that for 5 decades, the Rockefellers have been involved in building the strength of the Soviets. We are supposed to believe those international cartelists do this because they are foolish or greedy. Does this make sense? If a criminal goes up and down the streets shouting at the top of his lungs that as soon as he gets hold of a gun, he is going to kill Joe Dokes, and you learn that Dokes is secretly giving guns to the criminal, one of 2 things must be true. Either Dokes is a fool or all the shouting is just showbiz, and the criminal secretly works for Dokes. The Rockefellers are not fools. While David runs the financial end of the Rockefeller dynasty, Nelson runs the political. Nelson would like to be president of the United States, but unfortunately for him, he is unacceptable to the vast majority of the grassroots of his own party. The next best thing to being president is controlling a president. Nelson Rockefeller and Richard Nixon are supposed to be bitter political competitors. In a sense, they are, but that still does not preclude Rockefeller from asserting dominion over Mr. Nixon. When Mr. Nixon and Mr. Rockefeller competed for the Republican nomination in 1968, Rockefeller naturally would have preferred to win the prize, but regardless of who won, he would control the highest office in the land.
This is the Yankee Cowboy War, is what this is, and that's another one of these books all sort of circularly reference one another.
So what go down the Yankee Cowboy War, or is that? So
the Yankee Cowboy War is this idea. So because Rockefeller is and he eventually becomes vice president. He's what this guy says is arguably true, because Nelson Rockefeller, if I remember, he becomes vice president under Gerald Ford. I think that's who it was. And so there's a sense in which he sort of takes Nixon out. But the Yankee Cowboy War is a sort of split in what we call the WASP establishment, where, and I've done a number of shows with this, did one with the OGC one time about the origin of the West Coast WASP, but there were 2 groups that broke off, 2 groups of the WASPs that broke off from the Eastern establishment. And some of them went to Texas and became oil magnates, and some of them went out to California and they became the Republican establishment in California. And they were frequently at odds with the quote East Coast establishment. This is where, if you've ever heard of East Coast, West Coast Straussianism, this is where each side picked chose their fighter in a number of different dimensions of the political arena. There was Claremont Institute is the West Coast establishment. Oregon classically, and then I think Heritage Foundation is the East Coast establishment. But the main idea is that especially the Republican Party split into 2 factions that were roughly the Yankees, which is the Rockefellers are the ones that still lived in New York and they were still engaged in high finance and that sort of thing. And then there was the Cowboys. And interestingly, the obvious case is the Bushes. So, they're from Punxsutawney, Tucket, Connecticut or where the fuck ever, but they, they talk like this. and they're like, like you're just a bunch of good old Texas boys. They're like the rep, like them and Dick Cheney are like the iconic like cowboys in the Cowboy Yankee War. They've gone out west and done stuff, and that's like they're a distinct network with a different set of policy objectives.
Okay. All right. That all makes sense conceptually to me. Obviously, I'd love to learn about more of the specifics of it. Wonderland Shadow. Sandy doesn't buy the serial killer thing. No, Sandy does buy the serial killer thing. We like Program to Kill. To be honest, I'm just like I don't know. Maybe
I've never read it. I don't even know what it's about.
It's like, well, it's about MK Ultra. It's about how serial killers are MK Ultra experiments.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, they're like failed. There some intention. So some are intentional. Some are. I honestly think that a lot of the serial killers are failures of MK Ultra experiments. But
well, I told you what I thought they were, didn't I? I said, like they're MK Ultra guinea pigs. Like
yeah, that's what I mean.
Like the MK Ultra is way more interested in how the general population reacts to having a serial killer, and because they didn't have HBO yet, and they had to actually go create a serial killer to like even. It's just literally Tusco the elephant, but on like the citywide level. If you want to find out what happens to an elephant when you inject it with 1,000 doses of LSD, well, by God, you got to go inject an elephant with 1,000.
Yeah, doses. I mean, yeah, there are so many connections to people who worked with Jolly West. So many connections between serial killers and people who worked with Jolly West, or in some cases, literally Jolly West. That
right.
That the MK Ultra connection is not spurious at all. So I don't know. It would be a pretty natural book for us to read, but anyway. Let's see. While David runs the financial end of the Rockefeller dynasty, Nelson runs the fuck, I already read this.
I already did this.
You will recall that right in the middle of drawing up the Republican platform in 1960, Mr. Nixon suddenly left Chicago and flew to New York to meet with Nelson Rockefeller in what Barry Goldwater described as the Munich of the Republican Party. There was no political reason why Mr. Nixon needed to crawl to Mr. Rockefeller. He had the convention all sewed up. The Chicago Tribune cracked that it was like Grant surrendering to Lee. In The Making of the President, 1960, Theodore White noted that Nixon accepted all the Rockefeller terms for his meeting, including provisions that Nixon telephoned Rockefeller personally with his request for a meeting, and that they meet at the Rockefeller apartment, that their meeting be secret and later be announced in a press release from the governor, not Nixon, that the meeting be clearly announced as taking place at the vice president's request, that the statement of policy issuing it from it being be long, detailed, inclusive, and not a summary communique. The meeting produced the infamous Compact of Fifth Avenue, in which the Republican platform was scrapped and replaced by Rockefeller's socialist plans. The Wall Street Journal of July 25th, 1960 commented, "A little band of conservatives within the party are shoved to the sidelines. The 14 points are very liberal indeed. They comprise a platform akin to, in many ways, the Democratic platform, and they are a far cry from the things that conservative men think the Republican Party ought to stand for." As Theodore White put it, never had the quadrennial liberal swoop of the regulars been more nakedly dramatized than by the open compact of Fifth Avenue. Whatever honor they might have been able to carry from their service on the platform committee had been wiped out. A single night's meeting of the two men in a millionaire's triplex apartment in Babylon by the Hudson, 830 miles away, was about to overrule them. They were exposed as clowns for all the world to see.
Now, look, there are a lot of things that are going on here. This is literally, if you're ever wondering what is the hot gates moment for the conservative movement, this is it. And this
is the Thermopylae of American conservatism.
This is when American conservatism is movement conservatism is born. is as a result of and you notice there's a lot of shifty pieces here. Like for once, like these people are not Nick. These people are incredibly anti-Nixon now, but at the time they're like Nixon. Nixon sold it. This is why they're anti-Nixon, because like Nixon sold us out. But and then they're also this is also the origin of this of like the idea that Richard Nixon was not the same man in 1968 that he was in 1960. But this is the mythological basis that the conservative movement organizes itself around, is this like Republican Party civil war in 1960.
God. The whole story behind what happened in Rockefeller's apartment will doubtless never be known. We can only make an educated guess in light of subsequent events, but it is obvious that since that time, Mr. Nixon has been in the Rockefeller orbit.
But like you notice, like it even slides into like symbolic. It's like Babylon on the Hudson. Like they're
right.
sliding into the mythic register, just talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. After losing to Kennedy by an eyelash, Mr. Nixon, against his wishes, and at the request or order of Rockefeller, entered the California gubernatorial race and lost. For further details, see the authors Richard Nixon, the Man Behind the Mask. After losing to Pat Brown in the California gubernatorial race in 1962, Nixon had universally been consigned to the political trash heap. He left his practice as an attorney in California and went to New York, where he moved in as a neighbor of Nelson Rockefeller, the man who is supposedly his archenemy.
Yeah, here it comes.
$100,000 a year apartment in a building owned by Rockefeller. Then Mr. Nixon went to work for the law firm of Mr. Rockefeller's personal attorney, John Mitchell, and in the next 6 years spent most of his time touring the country and the world, first rebuilding his political reputation, and then campaigning to get the 1968 Republican nomination. At the same time, according to his own financial statement, his net worth multiplied many times and he became quite wealthy. Nelson Rockefeller and his colleagues of the Eastern liberal establishment, who helped make Nixon acceptable to conservatives by appearing to oppose him, rescued Nixon from political oblivion and made him president of the United States. Does it not make sense that Mr. Nixon, a man of passionate ambition whose career had sunk to the bottom, had to make some deals in order to reach his goal? And did he not acquire massive political debts in return for being made president by the Eastern liberal establishment?
Yeah, see, like I said, this is the phantom Nixon theory.
That he like just completely did a heel turn.
Yeah, like that he's like and there were like sort of marked shifts in his personality and everything, and people like remark this is where you get like drunk Dick Nixon like stumbling out, like he's on a regime of like barbiturates and various other things, moving back and forth, and that like maybe he's not he's not the same person that he was in 1960. Like somebody's gotten to him.
Yeah, someone got to him. Let's see. When Nixon left Washington, he, by his own claim, had little more than an old Oldsmobile automobile, Pat's respectable Republican cloth coat, and a government pension. While in law practice, Nixon had an income of $200,000 per year, of which more than half went to pay for the apartment in Rocky's building. Rockefeller. Oh my God. By 1968, he reported his net worth as $515,830, while assigning a value of only $45,000 to his partnership in his increasingly flourishing law firm. It may be that the frugal Mr. Nixon acquired the after-tax investment capital that mushroomed into $858,190 in assets by faithfully plugging his change into a piggy bank. Then again, it may have been part of Nixon's deal with Rockefeller and the insiders that Mr. Nixon's personal poverty problem should be solved. The president is obviously an unfree agent. If your income is $200,000, that's not like it's not a bad income today. It's a fucking crazy income then. Like
it's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
Wonderland Shadow for $5. Hey, Sandy, if you had been a forever Democrat, why'd you get into the alt-right? Turbo fans need to know. Bonus, go watch Drugstore Cowboy.
Oh my God. $5. I got to answer that one for just $5. Wow. Okay. Yeah. No, I think I pointed out I've always been a Democrat because I mean it's what I am. I'm a Southern Democrat, but Louisiana has this like weird where it doesn't matter.
He's a Strom Thurmond Democrat.
I'm literally a Strom Thurmond Democrat. It's what I am. And though actually maybe even Clintonite. Oh God, it's so embarrassing. Actually, the things I actually believe. But though Louisiana has this sort of deal where you don't ever we don't have primaries. Louisiana didn't have primaries, so you can just register for whichever party you want. It's entirely out of aesthetics that I've always been a Democrat because we have what's called the jungle primary, which was it here that I explained this last week?
No,
maybe because I know I've explained it somewhere this week. But in Louisiana, there's no because we have one party rule. Like since the Civil War. Well over 60% of Louisiana has been a member of one party or the other. Okay. And you can pretty well guess the line along which that demarcation breaks. But so we do this thing, and it's really as a way of disenfranchising the minority party where we don't have primaries in the strict sense. We just have on election day, there'll be 20 candidates. And if you don't get 51% of the vote, then you automatically go into the top two automatically go into a runoff. And so that's what the primary is. So you can just be whatever you want to be at you register however you want to at the state level. Doesn't matter.
Right. Okay. Let's see here.
Robert Byrd, Democrat. Yeah, I mean, y'all are all splashing though. You're all splashing the cruiser.
The man most observers agree is the most powerful man in the administration on domestic policy matters is Attorney General John Mitchell. Mitchell, who had been a Nixon law partner, serves as a campaign manager in 1968 and reportedly will serve in that capacity in 1972. The Wall Street Journal of January 17th, 1969, revealed that Mitchell was Rocky's personal lawyer. The establishment's landscape painters have etched a picture of Mitchell as a tough cop-type conservative bent, but it appears in reality Mitchell is but another Rockefeller agent. Richard Nixon was elected president on a platform which promised to stop America's retreat before world communism. Yet he appointed Henry Kissinger, a man who represented the opposite of the stands Mr. Nixon took during his campaign, to a position which is virtually assistant president. Is it surprising, then, that Mr. Nixon has done just the opposite of what he promised he would do during his 1968 campaign?
Those Rockefellers, everywhere you turn over a rock and there's a Rockefeller. Rockefellers everywhere. Whole country of Rockefellers.
Who could have imagined that a politician might run on completely different things 4 years later? How did Mr. Nixon come to pick an ultra-liberal to be his number one foreign policy advisor? We are told by Time magazine that Mr. Nixon met Kissinger at a cocktail party given by Claire Booth Luce during the Christmas holidays in 1967. Mr. Nixon is supposed to have been so impressed by Dr. Kissinger's cocktail party repartee that he appointed him to the most powerful position in the Nixon administration. That is excellent repartee. Mr. Nixon would have to be stupid to have done that, and Mr. Nixon is not stupid. The Kissinger appointment was arranged by Nelson Rockefeller. Kissinger had served for 5 years as Rockefeller's personal advisor on foreign affairs, and at the time of his appointment, he was serving as a paid staff member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Wonderland Shadow, and $10. Lol, okay, how'd you really get into the alt-right? And have you seen Drugstore Cowboy? And Capitalisimo, what's your top 3 80s flicks? All right, we will get to this one at the end of the show. All right, we'll put a pin in this one and we'll get to it at the end.
Drugstore Cowboy, I wonder. Let me look. Keep going.
Yeah, we'll go. Mr. Nixon's fantastic about face was praised by LBJ in the Washington Star of December 1, 1971. The paper states, former President Lyndon B. Johnson acknowledges that Richard Nixon, as a Republican president, has been able to accomplish some things that a Democrat president could not have. Can't you just see the uproar, he asked during a recent interview. If I had been responsible for Taiwan getting kicked out of the United Nations, or if I had imposed sweeping national controls on prices and wages. Nixon has gotten by with it, he observed, an appreciative tone in his voice. If I had tried to do it, or Truman, or Humphrey, or any Democrat, we would have been clobbered. Nelson, Rockefeller, and Richard Nixon are theoretically political enemies. Rocky arranged the 68 election so that if he could not be president, someone whom he controlled would be. The Rockefeller family, through their Chase Manhattan Bank and other entities, has been a great benefactors of the Soviet Union ever since the Communist Revolution in Russia. During his campaign, Nixon promised to halt shipment of war materials from America to North Vietnam via the European Communist bloc because these supplies were being used to kill American soldiers. But much of this bloc trade is controlled by Rockefellers, and Nixon reversed himself and greatly multiplied such trade. The press, quite naturally, remained silent about killing American soldiers by proxy. Well, there is that one other thing he did, but getting us out of the war, which does not help the trade.
To get out ahead of this, by the way, I have not seen Drugstore Cowboy, but Grace Zabriskie is in it, and I just interestingly just found out through Googling this that she's from New Orleans, and that, you know, she's the woman from Sarah Palmer in Twin Peaks. I didn't realize this woman's from New Orleans, and her family owns a prominent gay bar. It's totally unrelated. Yeah,
that's all. That was the. Thank you so much.
I told you I'm Rockefeller saturated.
Got it.
I'm like sitting over here like doing the thing with my with my lips and shit. I'm like, oh my God.
Look at this guy's face. How can he hate that Punim? Look at this guy. Look at this guy.
I always wonder how he get his hair to do that. It makes it
how he did the wave. He invented it, and black guys took it from him. That was Kissinger's invention.
Yeah. Another thing they've stolen from Henry Kissinger.
Yeah,
the afro.
The boss and his two employees, the three musketeers of the Council on Foreign Relations, Rocky, President Nixon, and Henry Kissinger. Kissinger of Harvard was made virtual assistant president by Rockefeller, on whose staff he had served for 12 years. Kissinger also has been on the staff of the CFR just prior to joining the Nixon administration. Kissinger was the very embodiment of everything Nixon denounced during his 68 campaign. This explains why Nixon has reversed himself on so many stands. Among those to hail Mr. Nixon's move to the left is Alger Hiss, the communist spy Richard Nixon helped convict. It was the Hiss case which catapulted Nixon from obscurity into the Senate, the vice presidency, and eventually the White House.
Chapter 7.
Well, was it Hiss? Was it Hiss that catapulted him there, or was it Rockefeller?
Or was it Rockefeller? I don't know.
Rockefeller was he just like, oh, we have Alger Hiss, he's kind of a shit spy, we need to burn him. Like, let's give it to Tricky Dick.
Wait, look, hold on. EL. It's totally advertised that way. I mean, we've always known, like, everybody. I mean, I grew up here. Everybody, it's a gay bar. I mean, it's like down on St. Anne Street. That diner that I was in the other night was right across the street from it. I had to defend my honor there.
Thomas 777 says Hiss is basically why the state turned on Nixon.
Yeah, that makes sense. This is one of those times where
but this is one of those things where Thomas 777 said that Alger Hiss is why it like that this was all a part of the Rockefeller scheme, right? But yeah. So Alan and Thomas disagree here.
Yeah, I haven't listened to Thomas enough to know anything except that he has like really intricate inside-outsider takes with respect to this exact set of issues in excruciating granular detail. Like, he probably knows the names of all the people that are mentioned in this book, and I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah.
Mind you, at this point, my lineage of American history has fucked off to Marin County, and it's smoking weed all day. Like we've thoroughly been written out of the power structure already.
Yep. This yeah. Never mind. Okay.
You were about to put that one on the Jumbotron?
No, I was not.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. I mean, it's on the screen. It'll be on the screen. It just won't be on the Jumbotron. All right. Well, anyway, so EL says, I'm not saying you're gay, but it's rumored in many circles you jerk off punks under the Pontchartrain Bridge. $15 a man.
You gotta sneak a super chat to say some shit like that. $15 to say shit like that.
I think you owe him $1.
Oh my
yeah. Oh my God. All right. Chapter 7, pressure from above and pressure from below. Fuck, maybe we only have one more episode of this book in us.
Yeah, we have to come up with a new one fast.
7, 8. Yeah, it's a good thing that thing that Wonderland Shadow has given us a list of things that some of which were already on the docket, but
this is toilet reading anyway. This is like supposed to go fast. You're supposed to be rapidly triple D'd by this book.
You're supposed to be rapidly disillusioned by this book and then buy 5 copies for your friends and pass it on like that's fucking chain letter.
It's dependency, yep. And then dread sets in later.
Well, the dread is why you buy 5 copies and send it to your friends.
Oh, I was thinking dependency because you need somebody to talk about it with.
No, you're dependent on the book for truth. You're dependent on the book for truth. Yeah. So,
thank you, Dr. West.
Yeah. All right. That's why, like,
wait, hold on. It's like a bunch more people need to say something in the chat real quick. Just like, just
to get it off the screen.
Just maybe flood that message out.
Well, that's why, for example, what would it be? Like self-help books, self-help books are the best, like as a genre, it's just so mimetically hazardous because the people who read
zero shot me the genre.
Well, it's because people who read a self-help book, right, already have hit debility. They are begging you to, oh no, Johnson. They're begging you to make them dependent. All right, guys. Let's not. Terrible. No towers. The second tower is fallen. Boy. Yeah, but no, they're begging to be dependent, right? So all you need to do is deliver dependency and instill a sense of dread, and you will just have them. So. Oh, God damn it. These fucking guys. These fucking guys in chat. Anyhow, oh God, Wonderland Shadow. After hours of fun questions, round 2, Sandy, go watch Angel Heart right now and get that dude Mike to do a stream on it. Capitalisimo, give us favorite 2 novels and why. Don't forget the Sandy origin questions too. Okay, no. Wonderland Shadow, we will do this at the end. That's a lot. Okay.
We have some free time though because we can't. Otherwise, we won't finish this book tonight.
Well, we do need some free time. All right. Well, actually, this is a fine break because we're between chapters. So let's go back through the chats here. Wonderland Shadow. Obviously, thank you for your generosity here. Okay, so. How'd you really get into the alt-right? Have you seen Drugstore Cowboy, Capitalisimo? What are your top 3 80s flicks? Sandbatch. Brief origin story. It's really easy. You could just I know how you could say it. I know what I would say.
No, I'll tell the truth. The way I got into the alt-right was after I moved back from, because there was a point in my life where I think I've told the story about how I was working on a ranch and I shot the turtle that was like sort of the guardian of the guy that I worked for, his it was his turtle mascot. He didn't tell me it was his turtle mascot. He sent me to clean out a cow pond, and this huge snapping turtle emerged out of the cow pond. So I shot it, and I was like, we're going to eat real good tonight. And ended up getting chased off the premise with a shotgun because it was his like sort of special turtle, you know. Anyway, I sold all my shit, moved to England, and whenever I came back, I was always like, had always read like Kierkegaard. I like politically, I was way right at the time, way further right than I am now in a lot of ways. But I was always like, I always leaned that way, but I didn't really get involved until after I came back from England. And I sort of decided that like, oh, I'm going to grad school for history and this sort of thing. This looks like the best place to get into historical revisionism. These guys like history, and we can talk about stuff that I think is interesting here. Seemed like a better bet than getting involved in traditional academia. And absolutely, I think that I think it was. Yeah, that's the origin story. That's how I got involved.
Yep. And he hasn't seen Drugstore Cowboy. All right, so top 80s movies. Let's see. I really like The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. It's like a sort of a B-side for Terry Gilliam. I think it's like a perfect reactionary film. That is something that you can hear me talk a lot about if you listen to Last Picture Show film festival from last year. So from 2024.
On that other shit, Gabe. I have no idea I don't even know who Gary Allen is, so I don't know who his favorite poet is. Wouldn't he a chess master of some kind? I don't know. Nixon's top 380 movies. I don't know that shit either.
Well, hold on. Hey, Sandbatch. Stop. We're going in order. All right. So we're just going to go through the super chats. Let's see. I don't know. I would have to say I'm not great with running a a hierarchy of things. I kind of just like stuff or I don't. I'd say probably Blue Velvet was the 80s. Really like Blue Velvet. This is like one of Lynch's like tighter films, I think. And I don't know, I could pull one out of a hat, like Airplane. Really like Airplane. It's probably my favorite comedy from the 80s. So
Airplane is one of the funniest movies ever made.
It's insanely funny. And holds up really well. Let's see here. Wonderland Shadow for $20. Thank you again. After Hours Fun Questions round 2. Sandy, go watch Angel Heart right now and get that dude Mike to do a stream on it. Capitalisimo, give us favorite 2 novels and why. So I thought that this was I was thinking it was Holiday Heart. I don't know why I was thinking it was Holiday Heart.
I've seen Angel Heart. I think I did a list of top movies. I think I did a list of top New Orleans movies a while back, and it would be on there. I wonder if I can find it. No, I've mentioned New Orleans so many times.
I haven't seen it. I bet that Mike hasn't seen it.
No, it's kind of an obscure one.
I mean, it's got De Niro in it, so how obscure could it possibly be?
It's just not big budget.
Yeah, I mean, we could do it on Drive Time sometime.
Yeah, y'all been skipping out.
No, what do you mean?
You hadn't been doing double features.
Oh, we have not been doing double features. That's true. Our guests have been on tighter schedules.
They've had lives.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Favorite 2 novels. Favorite 2 novels of all time. That's a tough thing. I guess I should just say 2 novels that I really like. Maybe, I don't know. I'll come back to this. I swear.
Think about it.
Gabe Underground $4.99. Who was Gary Allen's favorite poet? It was William Blake. What was Nixon's top 3 80s movies? He only watched Raiders of the Lost Ark in the 80s. So it's Raiders of the Lost Ark, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Sandy's top 3 e-girls. Go for it. How many? What 3 e-girls have topped you?
Oof, so nasty. Let's see. God, I can't. Oh, I don't want to say who my favorite e-girls are. I can't do it. I don't really have it. I don't engage with e-girls the way you all think I do. I just like, I don't know. Sure. There is an answer. There is an answer, but I'm not giving it out.
I gotta think on the novels thing. The novels thing is tough. Yeah.
Wait, so I found my list and retweeted it, and I did not include Angel Heart on there for some reason, but I did include. See what I had: top 10 New Orleans movies. I did 3 tiers. I did. Top tier was Jezebel, Obsession, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, JFK, and Tightrope. Tier 2 was Streetcar Named Desire, Pelican Brief. Zandali, I sold Zandali short. Zandali should be in the top. It should. That's a great Nick Cage New Orleans movie. Pretty Baby, Zachariah, and then tier 3, I had Love Song for Bobby Long, Blaze, Interview with the Vampire, The Cat People, and Skeleton Key. I don't know how I feel about that list now.
Yeah, you feel like you need to quick.
Angel Heart should be on it, and I think Angel Heart should be in tier 3 instead of Skeleton Key. There must have been some reason I didn't have Angel Heart on there, though. I think I had done too many like sort of crime thrillers, but like Mickey Rourke plays like a private investigator. New York City private investigator that like, finds himself in New Orleans. It's wild. It's a great film. It would actually be good drive time movie night fodder, I think. Though of the ones that I just named, Zandali is definitely the most drive time friendly.
Excellent.
Because it's like this like 90s like straight to television like Nicolas Cage. Oh
God, that's terrible.
Nicolas
Cage straight to television.
Yeah, but it's good. It's incredible.
All right. In any case, we're gonna continue. I will have my top 2 novels stewing in the back of my mind. We're gonna press on into chapter 7. Yep, that's right. Okay. The establishment's official landscape artists have done a marvelous job of painting a picture of Richard Nixon as a conservative. Unfortunately, this picture is 20 years out of date. The very liberal Senator Hugh Scott of Pennsylvania boasted to a reporter one day, "Liberals get the action and the conservatives get the rhetoric." Richard Nixon could not have been elected had he run as a Rockefeller liberal, but he can get away with running his administration like one simply because the landscape painters fail to call the public's attention to the fact. However, columnist Stuart Alsop, in writing for a sophisticated audience of approving liberals, reveals that the real Nixon. Alsop claims that if Nixon were judged by his deeds instead of his ancient image, the liberals' attitude towards him would be different. If only the liberals' Pavlovian response to the Nixon name could be eliminated, says Alsop, they would realize how far left he is. Therefore, Alsop substitutes a hypothetical President Liberal for President Nixon. If President Liberal were actually in the White House, it is not at all hard to imagine the reaction to his program. The right would be assailing President Liberal for bugging out of Vietnam, undermining American defenses, fiscal irresponsibility, and galloping socialism. The 4 basic presidential policy positions listed above would be greeted with hosannas by the liberals. Instead, the liberals have showered the president with dead cats, while most conservatives have maintained a glum silence, and thus the administration has been little credited for much genuine achievement. But there are certain glum silence. But there are certain special reasons which Pat Moynihan omitted to mention why this is so. Also, further explains, now having the reputation of being an enemy of the liberal Democrats helps Nixon pass their program. For one thing, there is a sort of unconscious conspiracy between the president and his natural enemies, the liberal Democrats, to conceal the extent to which his basic program, leaving aside frills and rhetoric, is really the liberal Democratic program. Richard Nixon is the first professional politician and real Republican to be elected president in 40 years, and it is not in the self-interest of the liberals to give credit to such a president for liberal initiatives. By the same token, it is not in the self-interest of the president to risk his conservative constituency by encouraging the notion that he is not a real Republican after all, but a liberal Democrat at cut rates.
This is maybe the earliest reference to
the rhino.
To the rhino. This maybe like the rhino moment.
There are plenty of examples of the mutual obfuscation which results from this mutual interest. The withdrawal of 500,000 from Vietnam is quite obviously the greatest retreat in American history. Sure.
Well, okay, it's sort of interesting because it's okay, yeah, there was political fodder in doing it this way, but like the biggest defeats and like the biggest retreats in American history were things that these guys weren't ever going to talk about, so it's going to be nobody ever talks about the Chosin Reservoir ever for any reason, and that's probably
no one ever talks about not letting Douglas MacArthur conquer China,
right? Yeah.
Not
letting Douglas MacArthur fry China,
Yep. Should have let him. Let's see. But the president talks as though it were somehow a glorious advance, certain to guarantee a just and lasting peace. When the president, like any commander of a retreat, resorts to spoiling actions to protect his dwindling rearguard, the liberals howl that he is chasing the will-o'-the-wisp of military victory. I mean, literally 2 pages ago, we were mad at Nixon for funding the VCs in order to profit the Rockefellers. But ending the hostilities does not continue to profit the Rockefellers. So what are we doing here? Anyway.
We're thoroughly inside the circular logic train that's driven conservative politics for the last half century. That's where we are.
When the let's see, when the president cuts back real military strength more sharply than in a quarter of a century, the liberals attack him for failing to reorder priorities. The president, in his rhetoric about a strong defense, plays the same game. The result, as John Kenneth Galbraith accurately noted recently, is that most people, and maybe most congressmen, think the administration is indulging the Pentagon even more than the Democrats, which is the precise opposite of the truth. Alsop continued what is probably the most damning column ever written about Richard Nixon by noting the role that the mass media have played in portraying the public image that is the reverse of the truth. Well, the more things change, right? There is also a human element in this exercise in mutual obfuscation. To the liberals, especially the liberal commentators who dominate the media, Richard Nixon is Dr. Fell, the reason why I cannot tell. But this is how I know and know full well I do not like thee, Dr. Fell. This is not surprising. Not too many years ago, Richard M. Nixon was one of the most effective and least lovable of the conservative Republican professionals of the McCarthy era. The columnist himself, a member of the Socialist Americans for Democratic Action, speculated on what the old Nixon would have had to say about the new Nixon. On his past record, it is not at all hard to imagine Richard Milhouse Nixon leading the assault on the president for his bug-out, fiscal irresponsibility, galloping socialism, and the rest of it. So how can one expect Mr. Nixon to defend President Liberal's program with the passionate conviction that a President Robert Kennedy, say, would have brought to his defense of such a program? Alsop has revealed the real Nixon and is obviously pleased. Those who vote for Nixon shouldn't be quite so happy. If you liked the Richard Nixon who ran for the presidency, then you cannot, if you are consistent, like the Richard Nixon who is president. Nixon and his fellow moderates have turned the Republican elephant into a donkey in elephant's clothing.
A donkey in elephant's clothing. See, this is like where he rushes in as the bad cop and just starts threatening. He's like, you can't in good conscience continue to believe these things.
Right.
By the way, the chat's speculating on who my favorite e-girl is. I think you all look, I'll like. It's not if you pay. It's not hard to figure out. It's like, I don't try to hide it. But go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. Sorry, hold on. I lost my place. On June 19th, 1959, Vice President Nixon gloated, "In summary, the Republican administration produced the things the Democrats promised. It looks like it's happening again." A year and a half earlier, Nixon had been warbling a different tune. "If we have nothing to offer other than a pale carbon copy of the New Deal, if our only purpose is to gain and retain power, the Republican Party no longer has any reason to exist. It ought to go out of business." The Nixon game plan, as Harvard professor John Kenneth Galbraith gleefully points out, is socialism. The Nixon game plan is infinitely more clever and dangerous than those of his predecessors because it masquerades as being the opposite of what it is. Mr. Nixon is aware that most Americans fear big government. In August 1968, Gallup polls showed that 46% of the American public believed that big government was the biggest threat to the country. Gallup commented, "Although big government has been a favorite Republican target for many years, rank-and-file Democrats are nearly as critical of growing federal power as are Republicans." Recognizing this attitude, Mr. Nixon geared much of his campaign rhetoric to attacking Big Daddy government. However, the Nixon administration has taken massive steps to further concentrate authority in the federal power pinnacle.
It's one of these things where like it just seems quaint that there are like what was the national debt back then? It was like some just
oh god.
Like if you just look at all of this wrangling today, it's like both of y'all just continued to suck at this entirely.
The national debt in 1972 was $427.3 billion, which is a lot, but also a fucking pittance, like compared to what it is today. Yeah. So ripperoo us. Let's see. I don't know. Maybe modern monetary theory is true. Maybe it's true.
Hey, that's a look. I'm not revealing anything else. I'm not saying anything else about myself tonight.
Excellent. Let's see. I mean, it is kind of a death march, right? Like if you owe everyone $4 trillion, they're kind of dependent on you.
Look, wait, I actually laid out my entire national theory, my entire economic theory on the blog the other day. I said, you don't need to believe in the dollar as long as you believe the show must go on. And then
That's right.
And then I included 3 poems about how credit and naked white women are the only things that keep the American economy moving. The specter of naked white women.
Ghost
dark
bitches.
theory. Dark theory. It's a dark theory, but I don't think Gary Allen will be able to find a problem with it.
Yeah. While centralizing power at a rate which would have made Hubert Humphrey blush, Mr. Nixon has continued to pay lip service to decentralization. During the first year of his administration, Mr. Nixon announced his New Federalism, the name taken from the title of a book by Nelson Rockefeller. The first part of New Federalism is the Family Assistance Program, FAP, which would, contrary to his campaign promises, provide a guaranteed annual income. Oh no. Based on suggestions from John Gardner by John Gardner of FILE, the Council on Foreign Relations, and Daniel Moynihan, a member of the board of directors of the Socialist ADA, the FAP would double the number on welfare and increase tremendously the power of the executive branch of the federal government. I think that we can say certainly that the increase of fapping has decreased the population.
It's also worth pointing out that it is Daniel Patrick Moynihan of the Moynihan Report, later to become stalwart, like sort of last conservative Democrat in the Northeast. I don't know. He wasn't really. I don't know how conservative he actually was, but it's like the last old school Democrat. He was a senator from New York forever.
Let's see here.
Sloppy Joe Stalin says my favorite e-girl is Rachel Haywire, and I'm willing to brook. Yeah, Rachel Haywire is my favorite e-girl.
That's it. You heard it here first. Let's see. The Left Wing Weekly, the New Republic, cheered the proposal as creeping socialism. The second major segment of the president's new federalism is revenue sharing with the states, touted as a step in the decentralization of power from the federal government. Actually, the program does just the opposite. Very true, 100%. The money must first go to from the states to Washington before it can be shared. As columnist James J. Kilpatrick remarked, not to be confused with James Kirkpatrick.
Yeah, different Kirkpatrick.
Yeah. Power to control the flows of federal dollars, as surely as the famous lamb accompanied Little Mary. As soon as the states and local governments get hooked on the federal funds, the controls will be put on just as they were in education and agriculture. Okay, so he knows this, but he doesn't get the foreign spending part. Okay. Every field the government attempts to take over, it first subsidizes. You can't decentralize government by centralizing the tax collections. Mr. Nixon's power to the people slogan really means power to the president. House Ways and Means Chairman Wilbur Mills has called the revenue sharing plan a trap that could become a massive weapon against the independence of state and local government. The plan, said Mills, goes in the direction of centralized government. It's 100% true. Absolutely, without a doubt, fully correct in its particulars and generalities. Right? I mean, am I wrong, Sandbatch?
You're not wrong.
Thank you. It sounded like there was a but at the end of that.
No, not at all. Never heard such contempt. Just now, did I do that?
You gotta say who is saying it. Sloppy Joe Stalin, never heard such contempt from Sandy.
Which time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was probably she's my favorite e-girl. You can't say anything bad about her, Yeah. But keep going. Yeah.
But Mr. Nixon is very clever. In his 1971 State of the Union message, the talk in which he used the communist slogan "Power to the People," the president said, We in Washington will at last be able to provide a government that is truly for the people. I realize that what I am asking is that not only the executive branch in Washington, but that even this Congress will have to change by giving up some of its power. That sounds reasonable, doesn't it? The executive branch will give up some power, and the Congress will give up some power, and the people will gain by having these powers returned to them. Right? Wrong. That's but verbal sleight of hand. Notice the precision of Mr. Nixon's language. He speaks of the executive branch in Washington giving up some of its power. 3 days later, it becomes obvious why Mr. Nixon added the seemingly redundant "in Washington" when it was announced that the country was being carved up into 10 federal districts.
Uh-oh.
These federal districts would soon be used to administer the wage and price controls, which centralize the federal government almost total power over the economy. To many political...
Laying the K line for FEMA camps is what's going down here.
To many political observers, the most shocking development of the past year was the admission by President Richard Nixon to newsman Howard K. Smith that he is now a Keynesian in economics. The jolted Smith commented later, "That's a little like a Christian crusader saying, all things considered, I think Muhammad was right." Howard K. Smith was well aware that such a statement was tantamount to a declaration by Mr. Nixon that I am now a socialist. John Maynard Keynes, the English economist and Fabian socialist, bragged that he was promoting the euthanasia of capitalism. It is generally believed in England among the students of this conspiracy that John Maynard Keynes produced his general theory of money and credit at the behest of certain insiders of international finance who hired him to concoct a pseudoscientific justification for government deficit spending, just as the mysterious League of Just Men had hired Karl Marx to write the Communist Manifesto.
I love the
The League of
Just Men. I looked, it's a real thing. It's like one of those things. It's like, there's no way that's real, but it's absolutely real. Also, nothing he just said about John Maynard Keynes is wrong, but it was framed in such an absolutely. There was another one of those words in there where I'm just like, it's just like one of the most fascinating, delegitimizing rhetorical swipes I've ever seen. But it's brilliant. He did it. He pulled it off. He stuck the landing.
He did. The farther a government goes into debt, the more interest is paid to the powerful insiders who create money to buy government bonds by the simple expedient of bookkeeping entries. Otherwise, you can bet your last farthing that the insiders of international banking would be violently opposed to inflationary deficits. In his internationally syndicated column of February 3rd, 1971, James Reston of the Council on Foreign Relations exclaimed, "The Nixon budget is so complex, so unlike the Nixon of the past, so un-Republican that it defies rational analysis. The Nixon budget is more planned, has more welfare in it, and has a bigger predicted deficit than any other budget of this century." During 1967, while on the primary trail, Richard Nixon made exorbitant Democrat spending his number two campaign issue, just behind the failure of the Democrats to win the Vietnam War. Mr. Johnson's 1967 budget was $158.6 billion, which at the time seemed astronomical. Oof. Mr. Nixon claimed that if that amount was not sliced by $10 billion, the country faced financial disaster. At a time when the Vietnam War was a far bigger financial drain than it is now, Richard Nixon argued that we should be spending around $150 billion. President Nixon is now spending $230 billion, and bills already introduced in Congress and likely to pass could push the 1972 fiscal budget from July 1st, 1971 to July 1st, 1972 to $250 billion.
I get some bad news for you guys. That bill's going to pass. And
the big, beautiful bill. It's so big, so beautiful. Everyone is saying, yeah. The point is that the man who campaigned as Mr. Frugal in 1968 is, in his third year of office, outspending by 80 to 100 billion what he said his predecessor should spend. And some experts are predicting that Mr. Nixon could spend as much as 275 billion next year. I wonder. Let's check. How much was the federal budget in 1972?
It's gonna be some number that
230 billion.
It's so small.
Yeah. What's this pissant spending? Pocket change.
What is
pocket change? That's like 2 F-34s or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
This is the same Richard Nixon who, in Dallas on October 11th, 1968, declared that America could not afford 4 years of Hubert Humphrey in the White House because he had advocated programs which would have caused a spending spree that would have bankrupted this nation. Candidate Nixon flayed the Johnson administration for failing to cut deficit spending, which is the cause of our present inflation. Budget deficits, he said, lie at the heart of our troubles. For his own part, he renounced any massive step up in federal spending. This is a prescription for further inflation, said Nixon. I believe it is also a prescription for economic disaster. Well, it took LBJ 5 years to run up a $55 billion deficit. Senator Harry Byrd notes that the accumulated deficit for Mr. Nixon's first 3 years will reach at least $88 billion. Congressional experts are now predicting Richard Nixon could well pour on the red ink to a total of $124 billion in his first term in office alone. In order to halt inflation, Mr. Nixon has now instituted wage and price controls. Most Americans, sick of seeing their paychecks shrink. Wage and price controls are the weird one. That is a crazy one that he attempted, because I don't know what's your explanation for it, because at the time most economists were saying this is fucking stupid.
Why was Nixon down for wage and price controls?
Yeah.
This was the end of what was called growth. This was really the end of what the consensus around growth liberalism, which is the idea is that the Republicans and the Democrats were both sort of on board with what we would call managerial, inflationary managerial state spending. And they were starting to run into the first set of economic shock after, because remember after World War II, economy kind of cruised along on a sugar high because like all of the other major industrial powers in the world had been bombed to shit. So we were pretty much the only game in town for a while. But in the 1970s, we started to encounter some capital shocks, collateral shocks, really. And that was the New Dealer response. That was like the 1930s, 1940s believed in the unified response of the U.S. government to do things like wage capping, price controlling. It was just understood from a generalized progressive perspective that was how you responded to that sort of thing. This is all like the Milton Friedman really strong, like sort of invisible hand of the market. This is all just coming online right here. And again, it's like I said, I think the main point here is to drive a wedge between wings of the Republican Party. And this is the vector where you can attack them that way. 1974 was the first oil shock, but there were already credit issues, and there was specifically consumer credit issues that were emerging from the massive sort of expansion of big box store. There's a great book on this called From Town Center to Shopping Center. No, that's the name of an article. It's the historian. She's a Harvard historian. Her name is Elizabeth Cohen. She has a lot of great work on specifically consumer credit bubbles after the Second World War. And so the first oil shock is in 1974, but there were already the economy is like having the first wellings of heartburn that are going to dominate most of the rest of this 1970s austerity, so on and so forth. It's interesting to note that during the 1970s, and I don't know if it happens before or after this time frame that we're talking about now, the Soviet Union actually passes the United States in terms of growth briefly in the 1970s. So this is also another thing that they're riffing on. Yeah.
Got it. In order to halt inflation, Mr. Nixon has now instituted wage and price controls. Most Americans, sick of seeing their paycheck shrink in purchasing power each month, have overwhelmingly approved. But this is because most people are not aware of the real causes of inflation. And you can be sure that the establishment's landscape painters will not explain the truth to them. The truth is that there is a difference between inflation and the wage price spiral. When the government runs a deficit, brand new money and the amount of the deficit is put into circulation. As the new money percolates through the economy, it bids up wages and prices. This is easy to understand if you think of our economy as a giant auction. Just as any other auction, if bidders were suddenly supplied with more money, they will use that money to bid up prices. Inflation in reality is an increase in the supply of money. It causes the wage price spiral, which is generally mislabeled inflation. You could not have a wage price spiral if you did not have an increase in the money supply with which to pay it. This is not just economics, it is physics. You can't fill a quart bottle with a pint of milk. To say that the wage price spiral causes inflation is like saying wet streets cause rain. Mr. Nixon, unlike the vast majority of the American public, is aware of the real causes of inflation. He explained it clearly on January 27, 1970. The inflation we have at the start of the 70s was caused by heavy deficit spending in the 60s. In the past decade, the federal government spent more than it took in, $75 billion more. The deficits caused prices to rise 25% in a decade.
Now, what's interesting is that most of this shakes out is the difference. There is a difference between the type of state intervention that Republicans like Nixon would be in favor of and the kind that was actually done. So like Nixon only really emerges here as kind of a budget hawk because it was the Great Society deals in the 1960s are what they're referring to. And this is like, from their perspective, this is entitlement spending. It's no longer investing, it's just spending. Okay. So like
right.
The premise of post-war growth liberalism is that it's okay to run a large deficit up as long as you're as long as the like sort
as
of
long as you're spending it on things that will produce a return.
Yeah. And it is true that it's the Great Society reforms are the ones that caused like just a massive bloom in like things that we call purely entitlement spending.
Yeah. Business blames inflation on the unions, and the unions blame inflation on business, but only the government can cause inflation. Mr. Nixon has fastened wage and price controls on the economy supposedly to solve a problem with which Mr. Nixon and LBJ created by running huge deficits. Actually, you know what? Business blames inflation on the unions, and unions blame inflation on business, but only the government can cause inflation. That is not true. The price of goods can rise relative to the value of money independently due to supply shocks. Like that is inflation. It is the exact same effect. But just now, it just so happens that the most recent supply shock that we have experienced was caused by the government, but it doesn't have to be. You could have a volcano or something. You could have a volcano instead of a disease that was produced in a lab and then leaked out somehow. Yeah. Mr. Nixon has fastened wage and price controls on the economy, supposedly to solve a problem which Mr. Nixon and LBJ created by running huge deficits. If he sincerely wanted to stop inflation, he would have put wage and price controls on the government rather than on the rest of us and would have stopped deficit spending. People are cheering Nixon because he did something. This is akin to cheering for a motorist who shoots a pedestrian he has just run over. I got to put him out of his misery.
You're getting really good at the Nixon thing.
I think it's a little loose, but wage and price controls are at the very heart of socialism. You can't have a totalitarian government without wage and price controls, and you can't have a free country with them. Why? You can't impose slavery upon people who have economic freedom. That's okay. Okay, whatever you say, bud. As long as people have economic freedom, they will be free. Wage and price controls are people controls. In his Phase 2 speech, Mr. Nixon made it clear that the 90-day wage and price controls are with us in one disguise or another from now on. They are a major step towards establishing an all-powerful executive branch of the federal government. Okay. Gary's losing me a little bit here.
Just now?
Yeah.
It's a good thing we only have 9 more minutes and then maybe like half a session left on this. We're actually going to have to come up with a new book before we're going to.
We really do. We really do. Okay. So we will. I'm gonna call it here, and I'm gonna start in on a few things.
Housekeeping.
Oh, this is a good one. Johnson. Business and the unions are responsible for inflation right now. The government prints money and gives it to aliens that join. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean that's true, but of course it's the government printing the money. So I mean, like we're just pointing out patronage networks. Like that's all we're doing. To return to Wonderland Shadows, very generous $20 super chat. Favorite 2 novels and why? This is just a almost impossible question for me. I'm just going to recommend 2 novels. I think everyone should read Mixtape Hyperborea by Adam Reinspex. It is one of the best Bildens romans ever written recently for sure. It's like a classic one. I think it's like an instant classic. It's very good.
Have you ever met him before?
No.
Yeah, I know him. I know him. He's one of my IRL buds. So yeah, can't. And also, if you like that shit from him, he's got one of the weirdest things I've ever heard in my life is he has this like sound collage project that he did called Static Blue.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's
incredible.
Painful to listen to. Painful. And I don't mean it's bad. I mean it's painful. It's very good, but it is painful to listen to. It is a distinctly unpleasant and unsettling experience to listen to. If you would like something like that, you should definitely listen to it.
If you want to be deliriously unsettled, take our recommendations.
In terms of let's see, in terms of other novels, let's see, what have I read and enjoyed recently that was a little unusual. Let me look at my list for some inspiration.
Cap has Cap only has one problem that I don't have, which is that
what
I secretly don't read very much at fucking all, and you can like probably intuit from my writing output lately that like there's like probably not much time left in the day to do much reading. And it's true, I've read thousands of books, but I don't read that many books now. Cap still reads shitloads of books.
Yeah, I'm kind of like in a situation where I'm reading a lot more nonfiction right now rather than fiction. I would say probably The Darkness That Comes Before, which is by R. Scott Baker.
I've never even heard of it.
It is the first of a 7-book series, which is also similarly deeply unsettling. Yeah, I mean it's essentially the what I think it's the Fourth Crusade. Like it's a fictionalized account of the Fourth Crusade.
That's the one that went up through Greece.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
I think it's the Fourth Crusade. It might be the Second Crusade.
The Fourth Crusade is the one. Just for the chat, the Fourth Crusade is the one that cracks me up because we get all revved up to go, get all revved up to go conquer the Muslim Holy Land, and just got sidetracked and collapsed the Byzantine Empire instead. I was like, come on, guys, what did you do?
Yeah, hold on.
MG has a chat. First time I've ever seen a chat and been like, nope, not reading that one.
One sec here. MG. Oh,
I know. I'm not reading that one out loud.
Kampf. Wow, I didn't expect that, but if you say so, Cap, I'll check it out. Not a novel. Okay, sorry. It was the First Crusade. I just looked it up. So First Crusade. So
the only one that really made sense. One of the fascinating things about the Crusades is that almost all of the literature on the Crusades is about the first one because it's the only one that really made any sense. After as soon as they do the second one, they're already doing these like strange things where the Germans decide at the last second to go off and conquer like Poland instead. It's like nobody could keep their shit straight. It's like Third Crusade, I think, is the one where the French and the English started fighting a war with one another in Israel, and then the French king pulls out and goes back to France and invades Britain while the English army is still on crusade. All kinds of wild stuff happened.
All right. Well, I think that I have adequately answered that that super chat. Thank you again, Wonderland Shadow, for your and all of our super chatters for their generosity this evening.
Yeah, remember you got one more chance to sneak a super
now's
chat.
Your last chance. It's your last chance.
Come up, Gabe.
Johnson, a French king pulling out. I don't believe it. Oh my God. All right. So we're gonna start again with more of Richard Nixon hate next week.
What is going on with the entropy? Oh, you got to do the OBS thing. I don't even know.
I gotta do OBS in order to make entropy work again. So, but right now this is what we got.
We're actually drawing in super chats. We should do it. They're no longer theoretical.
I guess that's so. Wonderland Shadow, Capitalisimo and Sandy, which decade would live in? I assume you mean which decade would you live in? Besides now, I don't know. The only the first one, or no, sorry, the third one, so that I could meet Jesus.
I would like it's not even that way. I feel like everybody knows, like, yeah, fuck, the 1960s were the best decade ever.
No, the only correct answer to this, correct answer to this, what decade would you live in, is, or like if you could go back in time to spend 3 days. Actually, this was on like there was like a Joe Rogan episode with some archaeologist guy
Like, dude,
recently where they were
how
if you could go back, if you could go back for 3 days to any time, when would you go? And he was like, I don't know, the Egyptians, so I could figure out how they built the Sphinx. And it's like, no, idiot. The 3 days of Triduum, of the first Triduum, you idiot. You fucking moron. Yeah.
Me over here, I just think like some totally stupid thing. That's also, by the way, that's an icebreaker question on a dating app, is what that is. But I could like just see Joe Rogan sitting there with like he had like Zahi Hawass guy on recently. He's just sitting there with like the world's most famous like archaeologist, and he's just like, dude, how often do you think about the Roman Empire?
Oh my god. Oh, Wonderland Shadow changing his question. Okay, what is the second one you would do? All right, that's a good
points at
that's
the
a little
super
better.
Points at the super chat button.
I would go back to the 90s and give my younger self a list of all of the historic swings in the options market, and then once at the end of the decade, when I reverted back to the present, which I'm assuming is how it works.
This is why I live on Top Ramen, is because I don't think about shit like that.
What, you just wouldn't income max your younger self?
No, I probably would. I would probably think of it before
you go back 10 years. You can go back 10 years from now and retire on, like, get a job at a Panda Express and plow all of your, like, 100% of your non-shelter funds into Bitcoin and retire.
Yeah. I mean, that's the move. That's the move.
Well, yeah, except, I could go back to the 90s and do the exact same thing.
Right.
So, yeah. That's my answer. Very easy. Let's see. Oh, Johnson says 1190, so I could save Constantinople. Sick.
1454, 1453, I think. There's like 8 different cities inside Constantinople, so like there's a lot of chances. Somebody has failed to save Constantinople quite frequently. Who the hell is Gary Allen?
Gary Allen is the author of this book.
Oh yeah. Oh okay. Yeah.
Jesus.
God damn. I told you I'm hungover. Who was Gary Allen's
I would
favorite poet?
Actually, if I was going to go back, I'd have to go back. I don't know. Go back to the 1500s to stop the transatlantic slave trade from ever occurring.
Fucking
or 17th century. Yeah.
Like I understand this seems like a good deal now, but you don't have any idea what you're starting.
Yeah. That would be the way.
Show them a picture of tranny judges in Pennsylvania and be like, that's where this is going. This is like, you can turn around now.
EL, that is not what I mean. Yes, correct. Most expensive cotton. That's right. Just buy more mules, bud. Yeah.
Sandy's water and mineral intake today 0. That's not true. I made summer stew today.
9 vegetable winter stew, just like Aunt Margaret.
It's like a summer one.
Okay. Well then, I'm gonna call it now. I appreciate all the super chats. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us.
But wait, hold on. I have to show myself one more time.
Oh,
because
sorry.
I'm the number 94 and rising Substack history writer. So get on over there and support me. If you'll take me to number 50, I'll actually publish history.
Yes. All right. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
You're discouraged from questioning and thinking critically. You must accept the word of the leaders. They make you feel guilty if you do question or argue. Your environment is often controlled, cutting you off from friends, family, school, previously held beliefs. They want you to become dependent, provide a poor diet, poor health care, little sleep, and long exhausting hours of work to make you physically weak and lower your ability to think clearly. Subtly, your self-confidence gets undermined, and your self-image or sense of identity is changed. The leaders control channels of communication. They cut off or put down outside sources of information. Then they bombard you with what they want you to think. They use strong peer pressure, playing on your desire to be loved and accepted. The leaders may promise rewards if you obey them and punishment if you don't, but they alternate harshness and leniency in order to confuse you. The leaders manipulate language, giving special meanings to words that only insiders understand. This is to make you feel like you're part of a special, important, or elite group, and that outsiders are inferior, dangerous, or doomed. You have to confess your shortcomings, mistakes, or misbehavior, sometimes even if these things never really happened. And meanwhile, your time and activities are tightly controlled. You don't have much privacy or energy or time to think because you're too busy doing monotonous, repetitive tasks. The leaders try to control you and even your sexuality, everything about you. They want to exploit you for their own enrichment, their own power or grandiosity. If they succeed, you will declare your loyalty to its leaders, rejecting your old values and way of life. Without realizing it, you will have been changed into a person who is being controlled by a totalist cult.